Japanimation Station.
Hello and welcome to Japanimation Station, an anime podcast brought to you by Sean Chapman
and Jonathan Lack.
We are here once again to step into the Grand Tour, the Grand Tour, the Grand Tour. That's right, we are back to step into the Grand Tour of anime. This week on Japanimation Station, we are finishing our explosive two-part premiere of our Grand Tour of anime, where last week we talked about the first two arcs of Dragon Ball GT. We talked about the Black Star Dragon Ball arc, the Black Star Dragon Ball Saga, you gotta be on brand here, and the Baby Saga, and this week we are looking at the final two arcs, the gratefully final two arcs of Dragon Ball GT, the Super Android 17 Saga, and the Shadow Dragons Saga, as well as the sort of TV movie special thingy, Dragon Ball GT, A Hero's Legacy. But Jonathan, before we get into the weeds on what we're talking about here with Dragon Ball GT, we need to clear the air a little bit. Because while listeners at home will be getting this podcast 1 week after the last one, because we pre-record these whole things, in our time dimension, we actually missed 1 week of recording. Because Jonathan, you sent me a text message last week. I was ready at a regular scheduled time. You sent me a text message that said, yeah, I think GT needs to wait until next week. I'm sorry. You have my full permission to go nuclear in making fun of me for choosing this show in the next episode. Now, I don't need to go nuclear on you, Jonathan. Dragon Ball GT already did that to you. But I just want to give a forum, a space, Jonathan, for you to explain what happened. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why did you miss that week? And most importantly, I'm just curious, at what point did Dragon Ball GT break you when you tried to cram like the entire viewing of this session of Dragon Ball GT in 1 week? Which I knew we were going to miss that recording. I knew there's absolutely no fucking way when I realized you had basically watched none of it in the previous week. But I kind of humored you, and I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll be ready just in case. And so I was not surprised when I got that text message. I just want to know, what was the breaking point for you?
Oh my god, I don't know the specific breaking point. It has been really hard for me to get through Dragon Ball GT. I thought it would be easier. I thought it wouldn't be this bad. I thought, naively that it's Dragon Ball. It can't be all bad. It can't be that bad. It's my beloved Dragon Ball. Anything with Masuko Nozawa, it cannot crush my spirit. And she never did, but the show sure did at multiple points. The Super 17 arc really fucked me up. I think it is the worst Dragon Ball thing ever. I think it outclasses even the lewd stuff from last week. It is the worst. And my ray of hope was, I had seen parts of, specifically the ending of, the Evil Dragons arc before. And I thought, once we get into that, I'm not expecting it to be great. I'm not expecting it to be the Frieza arc or something, but I'm expecting something better. And then, the first dragon is this fucking, I don't know, Super Sentai reject with electric powers that's laughing at them and doing bad jokes. And no, that's it's
that's not even the first one. I mean, they all blend together. The first one is the swamp one. The first one is bad. I think that might actually be the best episode of those of the one-off dragons. The swamp one might actually be at the top.
It might be, but it's so bad There's so much about it that broke my spirit, and I was really trying to cram it all in because I have been very bad about watching Dragon Ball GT over the several months it's taken us to produce these 2 episodes. It's all my fault. I thought we could do it better. My stamina was just low. I want to say in the middle of this, we did have the US election where Trump got a second term. That's not my fault. That's not my fault that threw my mental health into a spiral. And Dragon Ball GT was not what I needed to turn to at that time. But oh my god, Sean, this show broke my spirit and my heart, and I'm glad I never have to watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say for the record, I warned you. You know, I was against doing Dragon Ball GT from the beginning when we started planning this. You know, I was like, because I most recently of the two of us tried to watch through the show, and I got 1 episode into the Super Android 17 arc, and I'm like, I couldn't do it anymore, and so I dropped off of it. And so I tried to warn you, you didn't listen to me. And then also, even though you're the one who decided to do it, you're the one who couldn't, have your fucking broccoli every night. It's just all you got to do is 2 episodes a night, and if you just truck along with that, it happens to you. And it's if you just extrapolate it over a long enough period of time, you can suffer it. But you just couldn't eat your broccoli, and so you had to try to all cram it in right at the end.
Broccoli is good for you, Sean. This is like, I don't know, what is the equivalent here? I mean, eating your broccoli, you at least know
you gotta tuck into that plate of mud. Here's like a big field of mud, and if you try to eat the entire field of mud in like a week, you're gonna fucking die. But if you spread it out over a couple of spoonfuls every night for like a month, I mean, it's not gonna be any better for you. But you're not going to be dead at the end of it because you will have passed the mud through your system periodically while you're going through. And so that's what I did. I ate my fucking plate of mud every night until it was done. And you tried to just like tuck in for the mud feast.
Yeah, it was a bad idea. Sean, I have 2 thoughts. One, there's a phrase that I think of often. We are not punished for our sins. We are punished by our sins. And I think that is what has happened here. This is why you don't feel the need to make fun of me, because I've been punished enough, I've been humbled enough by this show that you making fun of me would do no good. And I think that is true. My choice to start this season with Dragon Ball GT, while hopefully entertaining for the listeners, has definitely humbled and humiliated me over here in podcast land. And second, I want to head one thing off at the pass right fucking now that I have heard on the social medias when I bring up we're doing Dragon Ball GT, that people say, and I think it is one of the most baffling things I've ever heard anyone say, and I don't understand it, and that is GT isn't very good, but at least it's no Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah.
What are you people smoking? I will agree for the first 30 episodes of Super. The first 30 episodes of Super that redo Battle of Gods and Resurrection F, awful, unwatchable. I think there's stuff in GT that is much worse than those. But there's also, like, the baby arc of GT is, I would say, like, on par or something. Or in some cases better. But take that out of the equation.
I would say the baby arc of GT is better than the terrible first 2 arcs of Super. Like, yes, I would back that statement.
Okay. I would say that, too. But when you get past that, Universe 6 versus Universe 7, the Future Trunks arc, and then the Universe Survival arc, they all have problems. They're not perfect. But you and I like Dragon Ball Super. There's an old episode of Japanimation Station you can go listen to all about it. It, I think, has way more of an authentic Dragon Ball flavor to it. I think it is better paced. I think, like, there are some animation issues, but you also have all of your favorite characters there, instead of it just being Goku and Pan for 15 episodes. I don't know what to say. Dragon Ball Super is so much better on the whole. Like, just compare, like, what that show does with Vegeta to what this fucking show does with Vegeta, where he's just either on the sidelines or he is in the body of the villain until the small points where they decide, oh yeah, we have Ryo Horikawa on call. We can do Vegeta. Just, I truly, to the core of my being, do not understand that sentiment, Sean, other than nostalgia. Like, if you watch GT as a kid and Super as an adult, and it didn't work for you, and so you're thinking back on your memories of GT, I cannot imagine watching the Evil Dragons arc and thinking, oh yeah, this is way better than the Future Trunks arc. What the fuck are you smoking? I do not get it.
Yeah, I've always been baffled by when I see that opinion. And I think it just must be by people who have not seen GT since they were a kid. Because I don't understand how you could watch this show as an adult and come to the conclusion that anything outside of sections of the baby arc are like redeemable or like watchable. Whereas with Super, it's got its problems, and even the best arcs in Super, like the Universal Survival arc, still has problems. It's far from perfect, but I mean, there's nothing in GT, just from like a pure like action and just like that lizard brain. Like I'm just watching this for like the cool action and that. Like I'm not watching it for anything like better than that. I mean, there's nothing even close to anything as good as like the Goku Kefla fight where Goku does the Kamehameha in Ultra Instinct where he slides on the fucking beam and then blasts Kefla in the face with the Kamehameha. Like, part of the thing with GT that makes it so fucking brutal to watch is that the fights are terrible. They are terrible, 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 fucking terrible. And the worst of them is in this back half. Like, the Super Android 17 fight is just unwatchable fucking dreck. It's so terrible. And then the fucking 1-star dragon one, probably not quite as infuriatingly bad as the Super Android 17 arc, which that fight just consists of Goku insisting on shooting Super Android 17 with ki blasts, even though he learns in the first like couple minutes of that fight that doesn't work. He still does it for an entire fucking episode. Like, the 1-star dragon doesn't have anything quite as bad as that in its fight choreography, but it doesn't have anything that's like better or interesting. Like, none of the characters feel powerful. Super Saiyan 4 feels like it's the weakest Super Saiyan transformation of them all, just with how they present it in the action and the way characters move and the way they choreograph things. It's like, this show is so pathetically terrible at action. And that's like the one thing that Super got really fucking good at. In the Future Trunks arc, and then in particular the Universe Survival arc, it got really good at doing some really, really good fights. And even if you don't like what it does with the characters, even if you don't like the slightly flanderized version of Goku, that I think how much that bothers you or how significant that is, depends on how you look at it. Like, I don't have too big of an issue with how Super characterizes Goku, but I get why people don't like the Super version of Goku. At least you can look at the fights and think the fights are good and have fun with the fights because they have like big hype moments and there's a good push and pull. They follow the basic kind of professional wrestling style rules of fight choreography in push and pull between the good guy, bad guy that you expect from a series like this. And GT can't even manage to do that on a fucking basic functional level. And that's what makes it so fucking brutal to watch, especially when the two arcs that we have to talk about today, like all of one arc basically is just a series of fights. And then most of the other one, the Shadow Dragon arc, is mostly just one big fight near the end. And then a couple of like one-off episodes early on. It's so much just kind of like vapid action that has no drama or attention to it. And I just don't see how someone can stomach that, because I really struggled to stomach that.
I obviously struggled with it too. I also like Super has that 10-episode arc between Future Trunks and Universe Survival that is just like 10 one-off stories. You have like the baseball episode, you have the one where Goku battles Hit again, you have, I think, you have at least one good like Kuririn one in there, and like Super has a love for the extended Dragon Ball cast and the world of Dragon Ball that GT is so sorely lacking. Most of the time it doesn't feel like you're even watching Dragon Ball, because the only character it really cares about is Goku. It kind of cares about Pan, but never enough to give her an arc or let her go Super Saiyan or let her do anything important. And then in terms of the rest of the cast, like, it is pathetic how little GT does with Vegeta and Gohan and Goten and the extended cast, or that, like, it only remembers a couple of cast members. It only remembers that there is Goku's family and Vegeta's family, basically, and that's it. You only see, like, Tenshinhan and Yamcha in the montage at the end of the series. You barely ever get to see Kuririn and his family. There's, like, so many characters they could be doing stuff with and they never do, and that's one of the things that was wonderful about Super. So, like, even if you're just watching it for the fun of enjoying these characters, GT, like, emphatically cannot give you that, and it is deeply frustrating to me.
Yeah, and it's also interesting, you know, as of recording this, I think Dragon Ball Daima is about at episode 7, I think is the last one that aired. So we're early on in that, like that series will be a lot further by the time this episode actually releases. But so far, Daima's approach has been to really invest in the new cast of characters that it has introduced along with Goku. So it's like, in that sense, Daima is, I think, it obviously like on the self-consciously resembles GT. in like a whole bunch of different ways. There's also, some sort of like, the Dragon Ball Guardian looking dudes that are clearly like the Shadow Dragons because they've got a big Dragon Ball in their chest and all that shit. So it's like clearly modeling itself after specific ideas that GT had. But the difference is, whereas GT has its new characters in Pan, who's effectively new character, and Giru, GT basically abandons those characters as main characters after the baby arc. Like, Pan is in the show. She doesn't do anything. She like barely even gets used as the damsel in distress. She does in the 3-star dragon shit, but other than that, like, she's just there to bear witness unto Goku is kind of the role she has in the whole ending of the show, which fucking sucks. And then Giru, the show mostly forgot about, and then you get like one random scene with him right near the end.
You get the same scene with him near the end as you got at the end of the baby arc when he comes flying back like, we remembered Giru! And that's it.
Yes. And so it's like GT can't even invest itself in its own original characters. There was no notable characters introduced in the entire first arc. So when they tried to do references to the first arc with the Spirit Bomb at the end, it's just a sad slideshow of things you've already forgotten about. Whereas, where we're at with Daima, I'm very much enjoying that show because you've got Glorio and you've got Pansy, and it's like they are new characters that the show fucking cares about and it's doing stuff with, and they're interesting and developed, and like the show is invested in them. So it's like GT can neither really pay service to the characters that you loved from original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, nor does it do anything with its new characters. And so it kind of just leaves you with a whole mess of nothing. And that's kind of how I felt about this section that we watched for today. And I kind of had a similar reaction to what we watched today, I think, as you kind of laid out, Jonathan, where I knew the Super Android 17 arc was complete garbage because I couldn't get through it last time. So it's like I knew that I was ready for a shit meal on that one. But I have fond memories, or I had fond memories of the Shadow Dragon stuff, because I had several of the DVDs from that section of the show. I had some of the ending of Baby on DVD, and I had some of the Shadow Dragon stuff. I never had all of it. This is actually the first time I've ever seen the ending of GT. I think I never even saw I never saw the Spirit Bomb stuff. I knew what happened. I knew that there was the big Universal Spirit Bomb, but I'd never seen that episode. I'd never seen the final episode of GT. So this is the first time I actually got to that stuff. But a lot of the earlier parts of the Shadow Dragon Saga, I had vaguely fond memories of. And I was like, well, that at least will be, like, watchable. It's so much worse. Like, it's terrible. I mean, it's not as bad as the Super Android 17 stuff. But I had the vague memory of it being, like, maybe not quite as good as the Baby arc, but in the, like, proximity of that in terms of quality. And it doesn't have anything even close to anything as good as like the Goten episode where Goten fights Baby, or the episode where Baby's introduced, or the episode where they go to the metal planet for the first time. Like, the Baby arc early on has some legitimately good episodes that are just good episodes in their own right, that you don't have to qualify as like good for GT. It's like, no, they're like decent episodes. The Shadow Dragon stuff doesn't have that. I think like the ending is probably the most interesting episode, but I've got a lot of complicated feelings about how this show ends, and we'll get into that. But that ending has nothing to do with the arc that precedes it, so it's like I don't even kind of count it in my head as part of the Shadow Dragon arc because it's just a little extra thing they threw on at the end. But other than that, the ending episode, which is probably the most competent episode in this whole stretch, I think the episode I enjoyed the most that we watched for this batch of episodes, legitimately, and I'm not joking when I say this, is the Vegeta clip show episode, where Vegeta just remembers things that happened in Dragon Ball Z. Because it's like, oh, I like Vegeta. I like Vegeta and Bulma's relationship, and obviously I like Dragon Ball Z. So it's like, you give me some good clips of Dragon Ball Z stuff. It's got the terrible GT music on it, but I can get past that a little bit. And then that's interspersed with fun clips of Vegeta and Bulma doing stuff. I'm like, right, there are characters other than Goku, and they're very colorful, and they lend a lot to the whole series. That even when Dragon Ball was very Goku-focused in the original Dragon Ball arc, before it becomes a very much ensemble show in Z, there still is a big colorful cast of characters around Goku that is part of what makes that series enjoyable. And like the weakest part in all of Dragon Ball, original like Toriyama Dragon Ball, is the early Red Ribbon Army stuff where Goku is on his own for most of it, which is part of what makes that stuff like kind of bland. Because I've actually been rewatching original Dragon Ball, and because I need to wash my mouth of all this fucking garbage. And so I just finished the Muscle Tower stuff. And that stuff's like fine. Like it's way better than anything in GT, but it's like notably less interesting than everything that came before it and what's happening after it, because it's like it's just Goku on his own going fighting through that tower with like a knockoff Terminator, the ninja guy, right? You've got Hachan, which is fun, but there's just it's just kind of lacks color and vitality because you don't have the bigger cast around your main character to help make it more fun and to give contrast to things. And GT, like GT just does that to itself. It's got this huge cast of characters it could be using, and it just chooses not to. And it's baffling and upsetting. And so you get this one Oasis, which is a fucking clip show episode. And I hate clip show episodes. I never watch them. I always skip them. Like, I have no interest. And it's why I don't really like the fucking kind of compilation movie thing either for anime. Like, I just don't kind of enjoy that style. I don't really, like, need it that much in my life. But that one was so much better than everything that came around it. Even the original bits that just connect the clips together is better. And it says something incredibly dire about your show, that's where I go to, that's my oasis, is give me some old clips of Dragon Ball Z and some funny Vegeta Bulma stuff, and that's better than anything else you've been doing for like 20 episodes.
It was my favorite episode of GT, Sean, because it was my third episode of the day, and I had my quota that I was trying to go through, and when I realized it was clips, I was like, skip, I can just start fast forwarding, and I fast forwarded through the clips, and when it got to the original stuff, I watched that, and I was like, this is good, and it took me about 6 minutes to watch the episode, and I was like, and I'm done, I can go do something else. And I loved it. Easily my favorite episode of GT, because it has the least amount of GT in it, so it is, yes, by definition, the best episode of GT.
Yeah, but even if you don't skip the clips, you can just marvel at how much better the action used to be, and how much more powerful regular Goku feels than Super Saiyan 4 Goku, who feels like a wimp who can't do anything and loses every single fight he's involved in.
Because he does. He never accomplishes anything. It's the pacing of fights. We'll get into this. But honestly, Sean, I think the one-star dragon fight is the worst fight in this show. Because it is, every single episode is Deus Ex Machina that doesn't work back to status quo. Deus Ex Machina that does back to status quo. Back to status quo. And it's every episode until finally they do the end of the Boo arc. And then it's over.
Yes. Well, I mean, yeah, we will get into, we'll break down that whole fight when we get to it. But yes, that fight is terrible. It doesn't have anything as infuriating as the, like, why are you still shooting Ki at this motherfucker for a whole episode? But I think the thing that is baffling about GT, now that we have finished it, we've gone through all 64 episodes and the TV special, is that the fundamental core flaw of GT that I talked about last time, which is pacing, and it's specifically that GT struggles to fill a single episode, even though it makes those episodes as short as it possibly can by giving you really long previews and all that. Like that sustains the whole 64 episode run, and it still has the problem for the whole show that like 95% of episodes are about half of an episode of TV, and they're episodes where only one thing happens in them, and it's fucking infuriating. And it's like mind-blowing that they never overcome that problem. I don't understand where that problem comes from, but you still get shit all the way up to the end of like an entire episode that the only thing that happens in the episode is Goku and Vegeta try and can't fuse again. And that's an entire episode. Nothing else happens. That's fucking it. And the fact that this show never is able to overcome this very insane, bizarre pacing issue, I mean, that is, if I had to sort of like give you the elevator pitch of why I think GT is a terrible show, that's it. Like all the other stuff aside, like the bad use of like the Dragon Ball characters, the terrible music, right? There's a lot of other problems I have with GT. But the thing that makes GT bad and kind of, for me, a virtually unwatchable TV show, or I mean, a literally unwatchable TV show were I not doing it for a podcast, as evidenced by the fact that I could not finish it last time I tried to watch it when I was just doing it for my own entertainment. The thing that puts it in that realm is just it cannot pace an episode to fucking save its life. And there are precious few episodes. There's maybe like 3 or 4 in this entire batch. And they're mostly some of the early Black Star Dragon Ball ones, the Shadow Dragon ones, where it's like, okay, this is like a one-off episode that they actually made it one episode and they get a Dragon Ball at the end. None of them are like great, but they actually feel like a full episode of TV. But it's like a tiny handful of episodes of this batch, a pathetic handful of episodes that feel like they have enough content to meaningfully fill its runtime. And it's just weird because there aren't shows that are like this. Even shows like original Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball, where I'm at the part in Dragon Ball where they have to come up with a bunch of little filler arcs and stuff like that because they've caught up with the manga. That happens by the time you get basically to the end of the first Tenkaichi Budokai. Like, it doesn't have that issue. Like, it doesn't have an issue of it can't figure out how to fill an episode. Some of the filler episodes don't fill it with, like, the most interesting stuff, but they still are able to put a fucking episode together. And even Dragon Ball Z was like that. Even in the fucking most dire straits of the Frieza arc, where they're really trying to, like, find the thinnest excuse to build some kind of filler thing, they still find a way to fill an episode with Bulma getting taken over by Captain Ginyu or fucking whatever that still gives the episode more meat on the bones than GT can manage. And GT is a totally original show that doesn't have an issue of trying to have to scramble to fill time. And so I was perplexed from episode 1 to episode 64 about why does this show have this problem? Why does this episode feel like when I was like a more novice teacher and couldn't gauge how much I needed to do to fill a lesson plan, and would sometimes have lesson plans that just like took the students like 15 minutes for a 50 episode class, and I then have to like scramble around to figure out how the fuck do I stretch this out to give them something to do for the whole class. Like, that feeling I had as a teacher, like, I look at the show and I feel like everyone making the show was in that exact mental space the whole production of just like, what do we do? How do we fill the time? How do we fill the time? How do we fill the time? That's what the show feels like, is people asking, how do we fill up the time that we have? Not how do we make a good TV show? And that's like, that is a brutal thing to subject yourself to watch. And so I don't understand the people who like the TV show of Dragon Ball GT. I can understand how you can like the ideas behind GT. I understand how you can like the character designs in GT. I understand how you could like the vibes of Dragon Ball GT. But the notion that someone could watch this TV show and enjoy it is absolutely baffling to me.
I do have to wonder, like, I know the creative leads on GT are different technically in parts than the creative leads on Dragon Ball and Z. But, you know, this is a continuation of a show in Dragon Ball into Z that ran for about 10 years. And it ran for 10 years adapting material from Akira Toriyama. Occasionally they would have to, you know, create new material that wasn't in the manga, but for the most part, the job of making Dragon Ball and Z was taking this existing manga and figuring out how to divvy up that story into televisual form. And that is just a very, very, very different, like, action and skill set than making an original anime. And I do think there's a fundamental, like, discomfort with the format of episodic television in Dragon Ball GT. It feels like people who don't know how to make TV. And that's not the case. That's not the case for anyone working on this show, other than the musical composer who didn't usually write music again because it's awful. But other than that, a lot of these are talented people. A lot of these are people who worked heavily on Dragon Ball and Z. But it was a different job there, you know, and it is a different job. And Dragon Ball Super certainly also had trouble finding its sea legs with a similar challenge. But I think you can say by the end of Super, that does feel like a show made by people who know how to at least make TV. GT does not feel like that. It doesn't have the rhythms down. And I think you're exactly right on that, because these are short episodes that feel really long to me, like really, really long.
Yes. Yeah, they just don't know how to fill their time. I mean, it's really notable to me when we get to the TV special that the TV special is the length of 2 episodes and has the plot content of a single episode. Like, it's fascinating to me that problem is so consistent that it goes all the way through to the TV special, which is one of the better Dragon Ball GT things, but it's still horrifically slowly paced and incredibly repetitive. And you can see where there are the 2 episodes where one thing happens in the episode, and both of them is Goku Jr. runs away from things. But it's like you can see that they still have the same problems. It's just it gets by because it is 2 episodes in one package, basically. Because, you know, they always have this problem of they take in a thing that should be 1 episode and then split it in the middle into 2 episodes. And that's how you get the episode where only one thing happens. Because there's no turn, there's no shift in the episode to a new phase, which is a thing that an episode of TV should do. Even an episode of TV that is that is stretching for time should be able to move from the we're losing this fight, now we have an advantage, or we have an advantage and now we're at the disadvantage. No episodes move in that way. Like, they just are static, and it's unbearable.
All right, well, we've been talking in generalities for a while, so Sean, why don't we go ahead and dive into the actual content of the series? I have a lot of notes on GT here, but they're kind of specific to different parts of the show. So I'll just say at the top to remind everyone that, these are the final episodes of not just Dragon Ball, but the entire 18-year Toriyama block on Fuji TV. But the show was very much also in crisis at this point. The writing team has totally shifted. Matsui Aya, who was initially credited as the series composer, is now gone. Her credit fully disappears starting with episode 51, although we're pretty sure she was not working on it through the end of the baby stuff. And while this might not mean anything, I also think it's notable that the director of the show, the nominal director, Kasai Osamu, he directed 4 episodes in the series' first half, and he never directs again after episode 34. Now, he still might have been working on the show. Sometimes the series director just doesn't direct individual episodes, but this show was in crisis, and you can tell, because also the final stretch of this show is written by 2 people. Maekawa Atsushi, he completely takes over the writing. He writes the entire Super 17 arc, and he writes half of the Evil Dragon arc with Shinobu Oito. Both of them worked on the first half of GT, but they completely did the end of it together. And in the Dragon Ball GT Dragon Box and other sources, Maekawa is usually the writer interviewed about GT. He is treated sort of as the head writer, so I guess that's the person we have to dump all our blame onto. But that is kind of who was in charge at this point, as well as a rotating sort of cast of producers on the side of the, who was coming from the Dragon Ball production side of things, the Toei side, the Fuji TV side. There were a lot of people being brought in and out to try to steer this ship, and it was pretty much a mess. So we have 4 things to talk about today, basically. We have a one-off episode, then we have the TV special, then we have the Super 17 arc, then we have the Evil Dragons arc. So really quickly, Sean, episode 41 is the one-off episode. It is the Tenkaichi Budokai episode where Mr. Satan is going to have a successor, but then he doesn't. It's fine. It's not the worst episode of GT. It does have one thing that feels kind of racist, which is that Oob becomes a masked fighter called Papaya Man. And I don't know. Right. That feels a little off. But other than that, there's a lot of Mr. Satan. There's a lot of Gori Daisuke. I enjoy that. Pan drops out at the tournament at a certain point. I don't really understand, because it almost felt like we were going to have a Pan episode, but we didn't. Pan never has her moment. Whatever. It's an episode.
It's one of the better episodes of this batch. This is one that it feels like a filler episode of Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, of one of the truly one-offs. We just got to throw something in here to fill an episode spot, and it's kind of between big storylines. It would fit perfectly fine amongst those, basically. Yes. I think it's saved by the fact that there's a big focus on Mr. Satan, and Mr. Satan just kind of makes things. I think he's an easier character to write for, to just kind of make things fun. And so, that episode, it's not amazing or anything. It's not inspiring, but it's better than a lot of the other stuff we have.
Yeah, I think now that we've seen all 64 episodes, Sean, can we say confidently that Mr. Satan is the character best served by Dragon Ball GT?
Yes. I think that's a pretty easy answer, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, he feels like the only character they are comfortable writing for and kind of have a take on. I feel like they have a take on Mr. Satan as, yes, he's a coward, yes, he's an attention hound, but he's also kind of been cowed by what happened in the Buu arc. And the fact that he now knows who Goku and all these people are, and he has Gohan and Pan as his new family and all of that, and he respects Goku, and Goku kind of respects him, and he will be at least courageous for those he loves. I can't give you that spiel for any other character in Dragon Ball GT where I feel like there's a take animating their interpretation of the character. There's an attitude animating Super Saiyan 4 Goku. But I don't think there's a take on Goku that, I know Super's version of Goku, people complain about being a little flat and flanderized, and I understand that. But there's also a take on Goku in that show. I don't think there's a take on Goku in Dragon Ball GT. There is for Mr. Satan, and he's the only character who gets that.
Yeah, I think the thing is that they effectively extrapolate Mr. Satan from what you see of him in the end of Z arc, right? You get the relationship with Pan, you get his changed relationship with Goku, and they take that as like the core foundation for the character, and they write effective stuff around it. I mean, we talked a lot with like the baby saga that was kind of like, in many ways, like the best part in terms of characterization was seeing his relationship with Pan and his relationship with Goku. And Mr. Satan's very kind of central to a lot of that stuff because he's our kind of human on Earth who's bearing witness to all the crazy bullshit that's happening. And it's maybe one of the reasons why this stretch of the show, this kind of final 2 arcs, are so dreadful, is because he's barely in it, right? This is the most prominently he's featured. He's in it a little bit once you get into the 1-star dragon fight, but he's not prominently featured there. And so, yeah, he kind of ends up in the background, even though I do think it is the character that this show is best at writing and it has, as you say, the best kind of take on.
All right. In between episode 41 and 42, which is the beginning of the Super 17 arc, we have the TV special, Goku's Side Story, The Proof of His Courage is the 4-Star Ball, or as it was released by Funimation in the United States, Dragon Ball GT, A Hero's Legacy. And this one was also written by Maekawa Atsushi, just again doing everything in this stretch of the show. And I have conflicted feelings about this one, because I think there are things in it that are pretty good. I think it has an interesting idea. I don't think it comes, like most things in GT, I don't think it comes together. The basic pitch of this episode, or this special, is that it is set a full century later. Everybody that we knew in Dragon Ball is dead except for Pan, and then whoever Pan's son or daughter was is also dead, because she is raising Son Goku Jr., as they call him in the English dub well, they don't call him Son, but Goku Jr. in the dub to differentiate. Still voiced by Nozawa Masako, doing her best. And I do think my favorite things in this special come from her, doing really good character work. The thing about this special, and there's a lot of this in this half of GT for me, Sean, where I think this shows, and I think Maekawa Atsushi, the writer, like his vision of Dragon Ball specifically is weirdly dark to me. Like, this episode, going a century later, where everyone is dead, it doesn't feel like any of them left a real impact on the world. It doesn't feel like the world has changed much. It just feels like, yeah, we're at the point where everyone's gone and there's this like lacking like legacy to the world. That is depressing to me in a way that is kind of hard for me to put into words. In the same way that when we get to the Evil Dragon stuff, its vision of like scolding, you used the Dragon Balls too much and now there's these evil dragons who want to kill you. It's dark, and it feels like something from a different show and not something Akira Toriyama would ever come within 10 feet, 10 miles of. And there's that kind of stuff that just feels like the world is a little sad and empty to me. And I think that's one of my main issues with this special, is its imagination of the future feels very hollow and small. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I feel the exact same way. That it's like... And it's not just that it's dark. I think it's just it sort of it lacks the twinkle in the eye, of Dragon Ball. Like Dragon Ball Dragon Ball is that like series where it's not only is it for kids, the show itself has the series itself has a very like childlike imagination and childlike sensibility to it. And I think that's what these kinds of stories lack. And I think it is in all of this stuff, because I think it also is in the Super Android 17 stuff. I think It's like how they kind of visualize 17 as a character, the way they treat Krillin and his death. All that stuff just is like, it feels incredibly off. And it feels not Dragon Ball. And you're right with like this one, A Hero's Legacy. It's got this sense of like, well, one, it's like, this is just the English subtitle. It was not in the Japanese one. But if you think of it as being like a thing about a hero's legacy, and the legacy of Goku is there is the musty old 4-star Dragon Ball that is in his house that nobody has been to for 100 years, and it's totally like destroyed and decrepit, and his like great-great-grandson or whatever it is like shows up to get this one Dragon Ball. It does feel like, I mean, this doesn't feel like it's set in the world of Dragon Ball, just kind of like bar none. I mean, it feels like it's like a Dragon Ball PSA where you've got Goku Jr. going to high school and it just looks like a regular high school. It's not weird, whimsical high school of Gohan in the Buu arc. Like there's something about the like, he runs into 80s movie bullies and they steal his mechanical pencil. And it's just like, this feels weird. Like this doesn't
what it feels like, Sean?
Dragon Ball.
It's Dragon Ball Evolution. It's the live-action movie.
Yes.
This is Justin Chatwin. He wasn't playing Son Goku. He was playing Goku Jr. from A Hero's Legacy, the kid bullied by his friends at school. It's that kind of like, it's Dragon Ball, but it's not.
Yeah, or like the thing it made me think of is Digimon in terms of like just the tone, and I think part of it is like the animation in this kind of like period of like the 90s and stuff. Where
it's the same character designer too, remember, because Nakatsuru is also the Digimon guy.
Yeah, and it's like Digimon's kind of attitude, and I'm specifically talking about like Digimon Adventure and like the early Digimon. Right. Like its attitude towards the storytelling is a little bit PSA-ish, just in the sense of their whole vision for that series was we're going to take all these kids who are dealing with like more heavy real world issues like divorce, being like one of the main kids is adopted, two of them are brothers and their parents are divorced, right? There's like this sense of we're trying to sort of take things that are real issues that are really like significant social and emotional issues that kids of this age deal with, but is often not portrayed in media, and they try to tell real heartful stories around it. And that's like very much like the idea of Digimon Adventure. So you get a little bit of this sense of the like, we've got a lesson to teach you kind of thing. Digimon Adventure, I think, does it much better because it couches it in its own unique worldview. And it's not trying to sort of like latch it onto this other series that is not built for that. Like Dragon Ball is this crazy, bizarre fantasy series, you know, that like Dragon Ball is like just such an unhinged fucking series that's so off on its own world. Where, you know, it's this world where there are both like giant dinosaurs and also like cities with flying cars. And you know, like it's just, it kind of does whatever it wants and it is whatever it wants whenever it wants to be. It is a series that is always forward looking and never rear looking. And it's just got that incredibly youthful spirit and energy to it that is like not necessarily like good or bad. Like I'm not saying like something that doesn't have that is automatically bad, but that is essential to what Dragon Ball is. And so when you lose that, it does just sort of feel like it's a thing pretending to be Dragon Ball. And that's what a lot of GT's tone kind of has. And especially, I agree with you that this movie, TV special, whatever, definitely has that problem where I look at it and it's like, this doesn't feel like it exists in the world of Dragon Ball. Like if this was like Godzilla's Revenge / All Monsters Attack, which we did a podcast on for the weekly stuff for our 10-year anniversary one, I think where that's the movie that's about the little kid whose parents are never home and he goes off and has to play on his own and stuff. And he's very lonely and he has these fantasies about living on Monster Island with Godzilla and Godzilla's son. That's what this feels like, is like it's a regular kid who has a fantasy about the world of Dragon Ball, and that's your world way into it. It's not a kid that actually lives in the world of Dragon Ball, and it's kind of got this bizarre tonal issue because of that.
Honestly, that would be fucking great, Sean. That would be so cool if you had like a real world kid voiced by like some contemporary voice actor. And then you had Nozawa Masako as Goku, like being his imaginary friend. That would be a lot of fun. And that would be really cool. I will say, I had only ever previously seen A Hero's Legacy in the English dub, and it is the most nails on a chalkboard thing I think Funimation had ever produced, because I don't like their versions of Kid Goku voices to begin with, and the Goku Jr. voice is especially annoying, and it's awful and unwatchable. I will say, watching it in its proper Japanese as God intended, Nozawa is so good in this, and like that is something I will say throughout GT. Like, if there is a reason I am happy that I have now seen all 64 episodes of Dragon Ball GT, it is because I got to hear her work. And I think she is stupendous throughout Dragon Ball GT. The saving grace of the Evil Dragons arc is hearing her get to stretch her legs as Super Saiyan 4 Goku and have fun with that, because she is so fucking good at everything she does. And I think in this episode, hearing her do another spin on the Kid Goku archetype, which we've heard her do with Goku, Gohan, Goten, and then again with Little Goku in GT, and now we get to hear it here, where it's a very recognizable version of Goku, but it's much more down to earth and vulnerable. Like, she's game for the thing they're trying to do that the writing is not up to.
Yeah.
And then I think at the end of the episode, the ending of having Nozawa as adult Goku talking to Nozawa as little Goku is a beautiful moment. It is completely reliant on her performance. I think you can feel there that at the time these actors thought this was the end, that this was the end of Dragon Ball. And it was for a good long time, other than video games. And I think there's a little bit of a goodbye sense to it. That side of it, and I would also single out Minaguchi Yuko as playing old Pan, I think is also really, really good. And, you know, you can give her the worst material in the world, but Nozawa Masako will never let you down. And that is the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like she's incredibly good. That said, though, there is, like, I think a fundamental issue with the plotting and the writing of the episode, where when you get to the end, you know, the whole, obviously, like, the whole moral of the story, the kind of PSA thing is, like, you got to learn to stand up for yourself and have courage, right? Like, that's the thing. It tells you at the very beginning. It's about Goku Jr. going through a series of trials where he runs away, and 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 then he runs away, right? Like, the biggest issue with this is it just does that, like, about 6 or 7 times, when it should do it 3 times. It should do it 1 time early to establish that this is a trend of something he does. Another time where you think where he's trying not to do it, but he fails. And then a 3rd time where he succeeds. That's all you got to do. They do it like 6 or 7 times, and it's incredibly tedious. But obviously that's the whole thing, is he needs to find the courage to stand up for himself, and then that's when he gets to turn Super Saiyan and all that stuff, and fight the big Mountain King guy. I think the problem, though, is that at the end, there's this whole thing where he gets the Dragon Ball and he, like, prays for the Dragon Ball, which I actually like that bit of him, like, not understanding you need all 7 Dragon Balls, and him thinking, like, oh, I just have this one, I gotta pray and all that. Like, that's kind of fun and cute. And then adult Goku, who is now, like, I don't know, the god of martial arts or whatever the shit, you know, there's a weird, in terms of the timeline of this was made well before the actual ending of GT. There's also weird inconsistency with the Dragon Ball being there, which feels inconsistent with what GT implies is happening in the ending, but whatever. I don't really get
it implies that they
that
might come back one day, so maybe it connects that way, that they've finally been restored, but who knows?
I mean, that's a line of it might come back one day, feels like it's there as they threw that in there because they were like, ah, shit. It was there in that TV special we made, because the spirit of that ending is like, they are gone. And it's like, yeah, but none of that stuff is all that important. The thing is that like, you know, when Pan shows up in the helicopter and she saved Puck, who I have to assume Puck is supposed to be a descendant of Yamcha because he's voiced by Fuda Toru, and they come in and Goku's like, or Goku Jr. is like, oh, because the Dragon Balls did work. They did bring her back. And then our Goku, old Goku, is like, no, it's because you had courage. And I'm like, is it? Because, you know, he kind of left Puck to die at the bottom of that canyon. You know, he didn't do anything to try to help Puck. Like, I get
Puck
that, like,
being
realistically
back is more miraculous than Pan. Pan had an unknown medical event and was in a hospital being cared for by a medical team. Puck fucking fell to his death. I assume he is seeing 2 ghosts there, or that Goku up in heaven was like, hey, Kaiosama, can you help me get my grandson? And he really fucked up, and his grandma and his only friend are dead. Can you just do me a solid? And they're like, Goku, you saved the world enough. Of course we can do you a solid. They're back. It's fine. And that is what happened, because there's no fucking way that Puck lived.
Yeah. And I think it's just, there's a really bizarre choice. And this is part of the, like, it just doesn't have enough ideas to fill 45 minutes. So it does the same things too often. It is so confusing to me that the thing that is the pushing point for Goku Jr. isn't him trying to save Puck. It's him trying to save the bears. And it's like,
yes.
I really feel like this would be a much more effective emotional moment if it was his buddy that he had bonded with over the course of this journey, and not a couple of random bears. That also, talking about things that don't feel like they fit in the world of Dragon Ball, those bears are not drawn in Toriyama's style in any way, shape, or form. Like, they do not look like they exist in the world of Dragon Ball. They look like regular, generic anime bears.
They're old Toei bears from, like, Animal Treasure Island or something. They're from, like, 60s Toei movies.
It's really weird, and I just don't understand that. That's like, we gotta save the bear, because, like, I would buy Goku's thing of, like, no, it was your courage that saved them if there was the bear cub was up in the fucking helicopter with Pan, and it's like, yes, because I saved the bears. And, you know, it's unfortunate that Puck fell to his death and this, like, 8-year-old kid is dead now because I went on this adventure and his death is on my shoulders, his blood is on my hands, but at least the bear is okay. And it's where, like, you know, this special, its heart is in the right place, but man, it does not know how to actually write the story to get get to that point. So it's like, even though the sentiment of what Goku says there is very heartfelt, and Nozawa Masako does a great job of playing that whole scene between her and herself, the actual series of events that have led to it make it ring so hollow that it's kind of comical in the moment where I'm like, yeah, no, his heart kind of got his best friend killed as far as we know, and maybe you should go get those other Dragon Balls, or maybe you did off screen and brought Puck back, because Puck definitely died.
Yeah. I do think it is funny that this special Sean adds fuel to your theory that after death, Goku can just use instant transmission to come back to Earth whenever the hell he wants, because he appears to have done that here. And
it's the thing we know he can do. He does it in Dragon Ball Z, but does it both canonically and in filler. That's how he gets to Kaioshin-sama's place, which exists in the other world, and he gets there when Gohan's there. It's just, evidently clear that he could come back whenever he wants, because with instant transmission, he just chooses not to.
Yeah, he's a weirdo. And sadly, this special does not survive in great quality. It was included in the Japanese Dragon box, but it was not remastered like the episodes were, so it only exists in tape quality, which is too bad. Both of the Z specials, the Bardock and the Trunks specials, had full Dragon box remasters on quality with the episodes. But this is how they did it for the specials for Dragon Ball, the nosy original Dragon Ball, though those specials are weirder. They're kind of less original in content. One of them, I think, is a literal PSA. I've never seen those completely, but those are also just concluded as tapes, basically. So it is too bad, because the animation in this is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it would be nice if it looked a little better. Because, again, I think GT is generally a nice-looking show, except for the episodes we're talking about next, the Super 17 arc, where everything goes to shit.
Thanks for listening to Japanimation Station. If you're enjoying the show, please remember to like and subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and tell your friends.
You can also find us over at the Purely Academic Podcast, our potentially educational variety show where we talk video games, movies, TV, and more every month. And you can read my movie reviews and follow everything we release together on the Fade to Lack Substack at www.jonathanlack.com.
And now, back to the show.
Sean, the Super 17 arc, aka the I Take It Back, this is the absolute nadir of Dragon Ball arc. These 6 episodes are torture. This is, I would rather spend a month in a fucking padded room than watch these 6 episodes of Dragon Ball again. You want to reach for the comparison of like, oh, it's like one of the movies stretched to 6 episodes. No, none of the movies are anywhere close to this bad. I would gladly watch Bio Broly 6 times in a row before I watch this fucking arc again, because that at least has some moments I like. And it has the characters generally on model. This is awful. This arc feels like exceptionally bad Dragon Ball fan fiction written by someone who, A, hasn't ever seen or read much Dragon Ball, so they really don't know what it is, and B, they really fucking like hate and look down on what little they did read or see, so the whole arc feels like malicious. It feels like a mean parody of Dragon Ball. It is just awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely terrible. Again, this is the one where I got one episode into it, and I just I couldn't watch it anymore. And although I do think, you mentioned, because this is a common criticism of this thing, is that it feels like it's, one of the 50-minute Dragon Ball Z movies stretched over 6 episodes. And that is what it is. Like, in terms of, like, the plot structure, that absolutely is what it is. And I think the thing is, what you'd see is that even if it was one of the movies, it would be an absolute garbage one, because it has, as you say, this very mean-spirited quality to it. But it's also, I think it just shows you how incredibly destructive that is to a story, to take something that is plotted for 45 to 50 minutes and stretch it out over 6 episodes of TV. It's just heinous. Because again, this is where, when we talk about there's one thing that happens in an episode of Dragon Ball GT, this is the most that is ever true, because it is just we took the 3 or 4 plot points that would kind of define the arc of one of those old Dragon Ball Z movies, made each of those plot points an entire episode of TV, and we put like 2 more in there for good measure. It's like of where nothing happens, of 2 additional plot cul-de-sacs. Like, it is the most horrendously paced fucking horseshit you will ever see. And then I also agree with what you're saying about it feels very mean-spirited. And we're talking about like this stretch of Dragon Ball GT just does not have any of the kind of heart of Dragon Ball. Like, this is where you really feel it. I mean, you get the episode where Krillin's killed like immediately, right? And it's just like the fact that they use his character death as like the random beginning of an episode, and then it's just like we kind of just move on from there, is so sort of like callous feeling, that it doesn't get a big dramatic moment. It doesn't feel like it's built up to. I mean, Krillin has not been used as a character at all. It's just this like toss off character death that feels like the kind of thing you would get in a bad DC Comics crossover event where they have to like take a random like C-list like DC comic book villain out of a hat, and they're like, Captain Cold, we'll fucking have his head get cut off at the beginning of this storyline in order to make it feel like it has stakes. Like, that's the energy that this has, and it has that just very kind of nasty 90s darkness to it that defines a lot of like where a lot of those kind of comic book event storytelling came from, and it absolutely is here. This like cynical, we got to throw a character death in there for things to have stakes, but we're not thinking about what would make a character death feel appropriate, what would make it feel dramatic, how do we build up to it, how do we pay it off. It just throws that shit in there. And then there's like 1,000 other things that just feel like tedious and dull and mean-spirited throughout the arc beyond just Krillin's like weird death scene. It's incredibly bad, and I would agree with you that this is the worst. Like, this is the bottom of the barrel. It doesn't get worse than what this arc is.
Yes, although to compare it to another arc that is near the bottom of the barrel, the Resurrection F arc in Super, I think, is very similar in how it is taking a movie that was already too long at 90 minutes and stretching it out to like 12 episodes of TV. And if you'll remember, that arc also does random character death for no reason to try to create stakes when it kills Piccolo again to try to re-motivate Gohan. But of course, Gohan isn't the person who saves the day in that arc. It's Goku and Vegeta. So he doesn't get to do anything. Just as in this arc, it is all there to motivate Android 18, but she doesn't get to do anything because the only character who ever gets to accomplish anything in GT is Goku. So 18 is off the board very quickly after that. Oh my god, it sucks. It sucks so bad. I don't even know if there's that much to say. The other thing I will add, though, is that the production collapses for episodes 43, 44, and 45. 42, 46, and 47 are fine. In fact, 42 looks pretty good. That's one of the Tadayoshi Yamamoto episodes. And one thing I want to say right away is that Yamamoto gets some heat these days from fans because I think his 2000s work on Dragon Ball is pretty lackluster, particularly in Super. But I will say the best looking episodes of GT are the ones that he was the animation director on. Like, I think you combine him as animation director with Nakatsuru Tadayoshi doing the character designs, and those tend to be the strongest episodes of GT visually because they are the people who have the longest standing relationship with Dragon Ball, and his episodes look really good. But then you have a series of episodes in the middle, 43, 44, and 45, that my understanding is some of these were even done by some studios that later went on to do some good work, but in the moment, like, it feels like no one was directing them because everything is so off-model. It's like so off-model that you would almost believe this was like an interesting experiment in the way like the Hosoda Mamoru movie from One Piece is like everything's radically different, but that's because there's an artist like steering the ship in a different direction and there's a vision behind it. This is just like, oh, that's not Frieza. That's not what Frieza looks like. Or Cell. And it's not like just, characters in the backgrounds of shots. That is a cheap, shot if you're looking at a background and saying, oh, that character is not drawn perfectly there in the distance. I mean like full-on close-ups where it's like Cell's proportions are so wrong it is laughable, or like they're drawing Goku's face as adult Goku on Kid Goku's body. This is just wrong, and it's freaky, and it is that entire stretch, those 3 middle episodes, just like unwatchably bad animation.
I'm really glad that stuff stood out to you as well, because I felt like I was losing my fucking mind when you go to hell and Frieza and Cell show up, and you're like, that's not what Frieza and Cell look like. I mean, obviously, it's not like their character designs are completely different. You know, it's you can tell that it's Frieza and Cell. It's not insane like that, but it's just all the details are just off enough that you're like, but that's not what they look like, right? And what it looks like is, if you've ever watched a show like Gintama is a great example, where Gintama will do Dragon Ball parodies, and it's like, that's what it's like. It's like, here's a fucking Cell from a parody episode in Gintama where they're doing a Dragon Ball parody, only they probably would have also made him not green, just so he would have been orange or brown or something, to push it even a little bit further. But the way that the face is just off, and as you say, the proportions are just a little weird, and so it's like they'd have here's the fucking Sugita Tomokazu doing a ridiculous Cell impression, and there's this guy that vaguely looks like Cell, but it's just off enough, not even for legal reasons, just to make the parody joke land about how silly it is. That's what Frieza and Cell look like. And it's just crazy because, again, I had to go and just look at an image of Frieza and Cell from Dragon Ball Z just to reconfirm for myself that I'm not crazy, right? I know this is not what these characters look like if people drew them today, if it's in the modern Dragon Ball stuff. But they never looked like this, right? Yeah, they never looked like this. This is weird. And then on top of that, they are also those episodes are so fucking tedious, because I've complained before about the we have to have a fight for the whole thing, and then for whatever reason Goku just refuses to transform. It's particularly infuriating when he's fighting Frieza and Cell, and he never transforms into Super Saiyan 4 against them. I don't know why. He just refuses to transform, even though they're the Earth is being invaded. Hell has fucking opened up. I don't think he knows Krillin at this point. Krillin's been killed, but he knows that awful shit is going down and he needs to go save the day. And he's just fucking around with Frieza and Cell for 2 goddamn episodes. It's so long. It's you should be able to smoke these dudes in half a second. And that would also be something you could do to convince me that Super Saiyan 4 is actually more powerful than Super Saiyans 1, 2, and 3. Because one of the problems with this fucking series is that it tells us that Super Saiyan 4 is strong, but Super Saiyan 4 never actually feels strong. He never does anything that feels like it's a feat of strength or ability that transcends anything we've seen someone do before. He just does normal shit. And in fact, sometimes some of the stuff Goku does when he's just Super Saiyan 1, when we get to the Super 17 fight, he punches Super 17 literally halfway across the planet. That's the most impressive thing Goku does in this entire series, and he's Super Saiyan 1 when he does it. And it's just how can you not do the most basic bitch shit of, oh, Frieza and Cell show up. Man, these guys were so tough and it was so hard to beat them. But guess what? When I fought you, I wasn't Super Saiyan 4, brah, and take this. Here's a 10 times Kamehameha, ha! I don't know what 10 times Kamehameha means. That move makes no sense. I don't know what the fuck a 10 times Kamehameha is, but I'm going to do it. And look, it's going to wipe these guys out in one hit. And it was so hard to beat them before. And you know how I know that they should know how to do that? Because that's what fucking Dragon Ball Z does when Trunks shows up. That's what all the movies do. That's what the fucking Fusion Reborn movie does when it does this exact same thing where hell opens up and you have to fight the old bad guys again, but you smoke them in half a second because they're not shit compared to how powerful our guys are now. How are they not able to do this absolute basic, most fundamental, simple thing in how you design these fights and make your characters feel cool and powerful? It's just maddening. There's no more frustrating stretch of this fucking show than watching Goku do nothing against Frieza and Cell for 2 entire episodes. Just to waste time. Just to waste your fucking time. It's the only reason these episodes are here.
It is so bizarre to say this about a 6-episode arc. There's no other 6-episode arc in Dragon Ball. Even the other filler arcs, Garlic Jr. is 10. I think the Otherworld arc in between the 2 halves of Z before the Boo arc is 7 or 8. And those are at least story arcs where things move. They're pretty bad. Garlic Jr. is not good. Please don't misinterpret this as me going, I love Garlic Jr., but I would watch Garlic Jr. happily before I watch this again, because it at least has some more sense of televisual storytelling. This is unfucking bearable. And even then you get to the end and you're like, okay, there's only 2 episodes left for the Super Saiyan 4 versus Super 17 fight. Maybe they saved the best for last, and no, that isn't even enough to fill 2 episodes, and it's completely unwatchable. And in the middle, I love that The only narrative move this show apparently has is sacrificing Piccolo. We did it at the end of the baby arc for no fucking reason, and then this time we're like, how does Goku get out of hell? Well, Piccolo already died, so now we'll have him sort of symbolically die again, but now he's going to be stuck in hell. Which just, again, this is what we come to Dragon Ball for, right, Sean? We come to Dragon Ball so that our favorite characters like Piccolo will see once every 30 episodes where they suffer and die, or they suffer and are damned to hell for the rest of eternity. That's what I come to Dragon Ball for, right? What a fun time we're having with Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's so callous the way it treats any character that's not Goku. It's just crazy. Especially because it doesn't use them, right? Like, I wouldn't like this plot point of Piccolo becoming the Guardian of Hell kind of anyways, because it just feels like inappropriately dark for Dragon Ball. But if you at least tried to tell a story that built up to that happening, I would at least be able to respect that you gave it a shot. But the fact that they don't even try to use Piccolo, Piccolo doesn't have a character arc, he doesn't do anything. The only other time he showed up twice. He showed up once to get blasted by Baby immediately and seemingly die. He shows up again where it's like, aha, I actually survived so that I could die now. And then he shows up again, be like, and now that I'm dead, now I have to be suffering in hell for eternal damnation of all time. It's like, great. Thanks, Piccolo. It's like, I don't know why. I appreciate that you're here to blast open a portal from hell to our world. Goku could just instant transmit out of it. Like, he doesn't need it. Like, he's just apparently forgotten. He can instant transmit between the other world and our world. He's done it multiple times. We're just going to conveniently forget that. I also think it's like another thing here is hell sucks. Like, aesthetically, this is not what hell looks like in Dragon Ball. Like, we have been to hell before. I know that it was in filler, but they've got other filler shit in here. Like, in the end, you get the fucking other 3 Kaiosama's from the other 3 galaxies, right? Those are filler characters.
There's a ton of filler. Gogeta is in here. The Dragon Fist from movie 13 is in here. There's all sorts of stuff. And that's one of the fun parts of the filler at the beginning of Z is that hell looks cool. And you've got the big Oni dudes. Like, there's fun stuff that you can do that the anime team has come up with on their own before. This is not out of their power, but apparently it is now because it's just blue rocks. Hell is blue rocks.
Yeah, it's like, man, I've been playing a shit ton of Metaphor Refantasia, which borrows a lot of hell imagery from Hieronymus Bosch paintings. It's like, imagine like how terrible Renaissance art would have been if their like vision of hell was like, it's just, kind of a rocky field on a rainy day. Like that's what hell is. It's like, it's the worst thing I can possibly imagine. Just imagine being on a rocky outcrop and it's overcast. Oh my God. Can you imagine worse suffering than that? What about the pools of blood and the, fields of needles? It's like, no. Rocks. Are they sharp rocks? Nope. Just rocks. But they're like gray and kind of black. And so they're not even like cool looking rocks. They're just rocks. It's like, yeah, that's probably awful. Does anyone eat your liver or fucking fillet you alive? Or nope. Rocks, as far as the eye can see. The worst thing I can imagine.
Well, my actual vision of hell is a world where this is the only anime I get to watch, is these 6 episodes of Dragon Ball GT. That would be my eternal damnation. I don't think we need to say much more about them, Sean. This is, as you say, I think if you arranged all Dragon Ball in on a line in order of quality, this would be the absolute nadir on the low end, against which we can judge everything else.
Yeah, well, I do want to just stress how terrible the fight is with Super Android 17.
Yes, it's terrible.
I refuse to transform until the very end. Just so annoying. And that's the thing that, this is what we mean, where, this is just like a movie arc that's stretched over 6 episodes, is that the movies can do that because the fight in the movie is 5 fucking minutes, those movies are not long. So it's you don't have this huge exchange between Goku and Cooler that goes on for 20 minutes before Goku decides to go Super Saiyan out of nowhere. It's like a quick little thing, and then he goes Super Saiyan at the end, and then he beats up Cooler, and the movie's over. It's I don't, think it's the most inspiring piece of Dragon Ball media ever, but I understand why the fights are designed that way for the format in which they exist. That's not the format that these are in. So it's you have an entire episode basically that builds up to Goku deciding to go Super Saiyan 4, and it's just incredibly tedious. because you just don't know why he didn't go Super Saiyan 4 in the first place. Goku figures out immediately that Super Android 17 gets more powerful when you shoot energy blasts at him, which should have been pretty easy to figure out considering that Goku has done this before with another android that absorbed his energy blast. And the thing that is so infuriating is Goku is kind of a dumbass in most ways. Goku's really good at fighting. He's a genius, brilliant fighter. That is consistent. That has always been how it's shown. I just was watching original Dragon Ball where he has the fight with Jackie Chan at the end of the Tenkaichi Budokai, right? And the thing that Goku is able to do in that fight, even though Jackie Chan / Master Roshi, spoilers, if you haven't seen that, Master Roshi's much more trained. He's got way more different techniques, but Goku is able to surprise him at every single turn because everything Master Roshi throws at Goku, Goku's able to invent a response to. Master Roshi uses the Suiken or the Drunken Fist. Goku's able to do the Monkey Fist, right? And he invents that on the spot. Goku tries to do the rock, paper, scissors attack, and Master Roshi's able to block it because he knew Grandpa Gohan. So then Goku, what does he do? He does rock, paper, scissors, but he says rock and he does scissors, right? Or I think it's reverse. He says scissors and he does rock and hits Master Roshi because he tricks him. So it's like Goku, since the earliest fights in this series, has always been presented as, yes, he's a crunchy bumpkin that doesn't know anything about the world, but he is a genius fucking fighter that comes up with brilliant solutions to take out his enemies. And one of the few times where that doesn't prove true is in the Android arc, where Goku does do this exact thing he does here, where Goku knows, Piccolo has even told him, because Piccolo's like, what the fuck are you doing, Goku? Like, you know this guy is absorbing your energy. Goku still tries to fire Kamehameha at him. But there's a narrative explanation for that, which is Goku is literally dying from a heart virus. So he's like, Goku's not in his right mind. He's dying. So that's why he's trying to do something stupid, is because he's almost dead. Here, there's no excuse. Like, why is Goku insisting to continue to fire energy blasts at Android 17 to the point where he like vocalizes, I know you're absorbing this, so take this. Here's a 10 times Kamehameha. Oh my god, he absorbed my 10 times Kamehameha. Well, I guess I'm fucked. And then Goku gives up. He goes like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. It's over. I'm fucked. And it's not until Android 18 shows up that Goku decides to start fighting again. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Who is writing Goku here? Like, it's the most out of character shit you have ever seen from Goku in anything. And it's absolutely fucking wild that they decided to do this. It's like, I'm surprised that Nozawa Masako didn't like have a fucking strike. You know, it's just like, I refuse to work until you actually write the character I play. Because like, she can do the voice and she can do the lines that they give her, but like, there's nothing that her performance can do to fix the incredibly out of character way that Goku reacts every single step of the way in this terrible, terrible story.
Yes. Goku is so flat. Like, that is the thing that with all the fights that I hate in Dragon Ball GT, is that it's always presented as Goku is up against this like immovable mountain, and instead of like coming up with clever ways to get over the mountain, he just keeps running into it headlong over and over from different angles until miraculously something goes through. And there's no creativity to it. There's no sense of give and take. There's no enemy Goku fights at any point in GT where it feels like they're having a real exchange. Like, this is what drives me crazy about the One-Star Dragon fight, is it's like 8 episodes long, and there is no moment anywhere in there where they're actually just kind of like sparring, getting into it, fighting back and forth, that kind of thing. You know, one of my favorite fights in all of Dragon Ball is where Goku fights Cell at the beginning of the Cell games, because they are so evenly matched. There's so much give and take to that battle. And then at the end, Goku's just like, yeah, but that's the reason this can't go anywhere. That's why I'm sending in Gohan, because we're too evenly matched. I think Gohan can actually surpass you, and then things happen. You never get that. You never get the basic pleasure of like two people who are good at what they're doing fighting each other. That is just endemic to not just Dragon Ball, but like all martial arts cinema. And the Super 17 fight is a smaller version of it than some of the others, but it is there too as well.
Yeah, it's so incredibly frustrating. Like, it can't be stated enough how terrible the fight choreography and planning and writing around all of that stuff is. God. And I watched these like a month ago. Like, it's been forever since I watched them. And now we're talking about it, I'm getting fucking mad about it again.
All right. Then we have the final arc of the original run of Dragon Ball. We have the Evil Dragons arc. I think they called it the Shadow Dragons arc in English, because the word evil, Jonathan. I guess.
they called it the Shadow Dragons Saga in English.
All right. All right. Well, we have our Shadow Dragons Saga, Sean. And let me start here with, I want to have a conversation about the basic sort of conception of this arc. I'm going to start by giving some words that Maekawa Atsushi gave in an interview for the Dragon book that was in the Dragon box that came, the DVD release of the series. And then I just want to talk about, before we get into the actual content of the episodes, like, is the idea itself sound? How do they execute on it? Because it is, at a very least, we can say it is an interesting idea for an arc. Whether or not it's a good one is up for debate. So, of the decision to do this arc, where the Dragon Balls themselves become the enemies, Maekawa explained, and I'm reading from the translation by Kanzenshu here, with the Dragon Balls around, any mistake can be undone. In extreme circumstances, even people who have died can come back to life. Up until this point, it had been repeatedly treated as a given. Unfortunately, however, such a useful tool doesn't actually exist. In that case, for the children watching this work in the real world, where the Dragon Balls don't exist, to express this theme of, just how are we supposed to resolve problems in a world without the Dragon Balls? It's something that, because we love the series so much, we felt we couldn't get around. So based on the concept that the evil dragons were corruptions born as the price of the wishes granted up till now, we'd have the people who gave rise to these corruptions take responsibility for them one by one, not by relying on the Dragon Balls, but by their own strength. That's the kind of story we went with. In the end, by taking responsibility for all 7, the Dragon Balls are purified, and Goku and Co. bring back all the people who have died up to that point, as they've always done. But normally the cities are restored at the same time from the people as the people are revived. This time, however, what's conclusively different from usual is that only the people are revived, and the deep scars in the cityscape remain. In other words, the people have to restore the broken city not with the power of the Dragon Balls, but with their own hands. I wrote that scene with that sort of desire in mind. The Dragon Balls are clearly a tool like something out of a dream. However, what's needed to achieve a dream that lies past predicaments to get out of is ultimately the strength of people. The entire theme of the series up to this point was in that. It's because we wanted people to perceive that intention that we made the Dragon Balls the final enemy. So, that is what Maekawa had in mind with this arc. And again, I think it is fair to say that is an interesting idea, that you are trying to write some kind of conclusive end for Dragon Ball. They knew this was the end of the road for the anime. Toriyama obviously had ended his manga. Toriyama's ending in the manga is much more of a just life goes on kind of ending. There'll be more adventures. There's nothing definitive about the ending of the manga. This is trying to do something more definitive by taking the Dragon Balls, saying, you guys overused them, now there's a threat coming out of them. Putting aside for a second, Sean, the execution of that idea, What do you think of that concept as an idea to tell in Dragon Ball?
Oh, well, so I think it does not fit the worldview of Dragon Ball. I think the thing that's interesting to me is, since the last time I tried to watch anything or really engage with Dragon Ball GT in any way, shape, or form, I have now watched, I don't know, like 7 or 8 different Ultraman series. The ending of Dragon Ball GT is just the ending of every single Ultraman show. The ending of every Ultraman show is you get to the end and you face some sort of threat that Ultraman is not able to defeat on his own. And so then the human resistance, like the human defense force or whatever they're called for whatever that specific series is, they have to come together and they have to learn to be able to fight against these kinds of threats without Ultraman. Right? Like, how do we do this if Ultraman's not here and humanity must grow on their own 2 feet, and then Ultraman leaves and goes to the stars, either leaving behind the human host who then can no longer turn into Ultraman, or in the case of the series where there is no human host and it's just an Ultraman that's turned into a human, he just goes to space to go back to the nebula M78 to back to the planet of light, and he leaves behind humanity to then work on their own. Now, those are great. The ending to every Ultraman series is usually one of the best episodes of that Ultraman series, because there is a consistency to what those stories are about, which is about humanity facing these kinds of threats that they cannot stand to on their own. There being this benevolent giant of light that visits us from the stars that helps give us that power. And it's about Ultraman inspiring the people of Earth, and particularly the children, because there's always a child main character, in order for them to have the courage and the ability to stand on their own. And that is what those series are about consistently all the way through. It also very clearly comes from Tsuburaya Eiji and his family's conversion to Catholicism that happened before the making of Ultraman, where there are lots of like Christian themes in the conception of Ultraman. Ultraman himself as a character is a very clear Christ analog. And so the idea of Christ has come to Earth to teach us these lessons, to make us better so that we can stand up to and confront sins on our own terms. And then he goes back to heaven, and we do not have him here with us, but he is with us in our hearts. Like, that is literally like the light of Ultraman is literally in the hearts of the people in multiple of the endings of Ultraman. That like he gives it to us all, and we can't turn into Ultraman, but we have a piece of Ultraman inside of us because we have like the divine grace, right? It is a very clear, consistent theming in Ultraman. It works great for Ultraman. I'm 100% confident that either directly or just through like the general like osmosis of it, that the endings of Ultraman are an influence on the ending of Dragon Ball GT, because some of the details are very like specifically very similar in some of the tone and how they present it. The problem is that Dragon Ball's not Ultraman. Like, that's not what the theme of Dragon Ball is. That's never been what the theme of Dragon Ball is. And it's not what the Dragon Balls themselves are. Again, like, Dragon Ball is not just a series for children. Ultraman is a series for children. That's the demographic. Like, that's like the main target. But Ultraman is not a childish series. Dragon Ball is a childish series. The series itself, its philosophy, its worldview, the way it carries itself has an innocent childishness to it at its heart. And so the Dragon Balls, I think, are clearly like meant to be from Toriyama's perspective, but I think because this is just the way it's set up, it's what they're best used as, is that they are these mysterious, wonderful things, right? That have this mysterious power, the Shigina power of the Dragon Balls, right? That's in the opening of all these, of the Dragon Ball. They use it all the time. It's in the opening of the original manga, uses that language. And like, that is what they are. They are these like mystical things to be sought after because they have this incredible power. And it's not this thing that like, oh, because we've overused it, over relied on it, that would like, that's too bad and it's too evil, and our sins have contaminated the Dragon Ball. And because our sins have contaminated the Dragon Ball, our Goku, our Christ-like figure, whom Pan literally describes as like a god at the ending of the show. Again, this is where I'm saying that this is just the ending of an Ultraman. Goku must go back to heaven to be with the Heavenly Father, which is Shenron, yes, the Eternal Dragon, and he becomes one with God. And has to take the Dragon Balls with him because, you know, we have to be cleansed of our sin. Like, that's what it is. That's just so not the tone and vibe of Dragon Ball. It's so far away from the tone and vibe of Dragon Ball that it's kind of very, it's very ridiculous. And so, yes, like, I think it is an interesting idea on paper, and I see where the idea came from. I'm not like shocked that they came up with this idea, but I do think it's pretty much anathema to the central tone and vision and worldview of what Dragon Ball is as a franchise.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought in the Ultraman comparison, because also the metaphor or the analog is wrong. Because if you're comparing this, the Dragon Balls are not analogous to Ultraman. Goku is Ultraman in that analogy. The Dragon Balls never save the world. They bring it back. They bring people back. They solve some problems along the way. But like, if you're an American like us, the first thing you saw was probably Dragon Ball Z. And that means the first invocation of the dragon you ever saw in Dragon Ball was them summoning the dragon to try to get him to defeat the Saiyans. And he goes, "Yes, guys, I can't do that. I can bring Goku back. Do you want me to bring Goku back? I can't defeat them." And the whole idea that you get right off the bat, if that was your starting point, which it was for a lot of people around the world, is, okay, the Dragon Ball is this, it's a thing that helps them. It helps them get out of, it helps them bring their friends back or something, but it cannot solve the problems for them. And so if that is the theme, and that is the nominal theme of GT, they've already been doing that. Goku has been working really fucking hard, and all of his friends have been working really hard to make the Earth better on their own, and they turn to the Dragon Balls every so often because Dragon Ball is a world that is childish in that it is also ultimately life-affirming and good, and the Dragon Balls are always positioned as a reward for goodness. The Dragon Balls are a thing that, outside of, that first arc where they're literally seeking them, they're usually a reward at the end of the story for you have done all the good things, now let's set the world right. Like, but they have to struggle and go through that. You know, it's not that at the Cell games they use the Dragon Balls to defeat Cell. It's that at the Cell games, Vegeta, you know, watches Trunks fucking die, and Gohan has to watch Android 16 die, and then they struggle and they get through, and Goku goes off and gets blown up. And then at the end of that, once they have summoned all of their courage and won the day, then they use the Dragon Balls to make the world a little bit better on top of that. That is the role of the Dragon Balls. And so I agree, Sean, like when you have the characters getting lectured about like, you overused the Dragon Balls and all of the negative energy got released into the blah, 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 blah. Well, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, there's nothing malicious in that. They have this weird thing that I think could have been more fun, but they don't ever do anything with it, where every dragon, they show which wish, like, gave the evil dragon its whole, like, spirit, but the wish never, like, relates to the character in any way, because you can't create that, because the wishes are all so innocent. And the one that isn't innocent is wishing for the panties, and that one is innocent in so much as it is completely nonsensical and not important, right? So, like, what negative energy was released from Oolong wishing for panties, which was also in its own way a heroic act because it stopped Emperor Pilaf from doing something bad, right? And it's just because, you know, Oolong was quick on the draw because he's a giant fucking pervert. So, like, none of it passes the smell test for me as a Dragon Ball fan. And then I think in the specific execution, which is so scoldy, it does have that kind of like Catholic guilt to it, as you were saying, Sean, if we're comparing it to Ultraman. I made the comparison in my notes. It feels like if you told a Peanuts story where Charlie Brown had to go put down Snoopy. Like, it would be, it's so fundamentally missing the worldview of the series. Like, yes, in reality, Charlie Brown would outlive Snoopy because dogs have much shorter lives than us, and eventually Charlie Brown would have to watch Snoopy die, and that would be very sad. But you would have to be a fucking lunatic to tell the Peanuts story where Charlie Brown has to go have the vet put Snoopy to sleep. Because that's not what anybody goes to Charlie Brown for, and that is not the positive value Charlie Brown puts into the world. And so I think telling a Dragon Ball story where you're like, but the Dragon Balls were actually bad and you were bad for using them, that's what it feels like to me. It's like you don't understand or even really enjoy what the series is. And then I think there's a bunch of other problems with this arc that it can't tell this story well, but even in its ideal form, I think it's just the wrong story for this show.
I 100% agree. And I think part of it also is just like it so doesn't scan with the Dragon Balls in Shenron as they've been presented up to this point. This is also a problem I have with the Black Star Dragon Balls in the first place, where the whole conception of we've got these secret extra set of Dragon Balls that if you wish on them, they get spread across the galaxy. And if you don't get them all back within a year, the Earth blows up. And it's like the fact that nobody asked, well, how was anyone supposed to ever go get them again in the first place before these characters attained space travel over the course of the story? Like, it's insane to imagine the fact that there was, like, that Kami-sama made these fucking extra Dragon Balls that nobody would be able to get back if they made a wish, and if you can't get them back, they blow up the Earth. It's like, that it makes absolutely no fucking sense if you think half a second about it. And it's the same thing here of where it's like, your example from the Saiyan arc is a good one, of where Shenron is, for most of the series, is shown as being not actually all powerful. Because one of the other things that happens relatively early in the Demon King Piccolo arc, Demon King Piccolo fucking blows Shenron up. He kills Shenron. Demon King Piccolo... We're talking about Demon King Piccolo. This isn't fucking Frieza. This is Demon King Piccolo. The dude that Goku beat when he was like 14 or whatever. Like, that dude's more powerful than the dragon. Obviously, the dragon is able to do specific things like bring people back to life. But in terms of, like, power, raw power, he's pretty low on the fucking scale. Like, Krillin could destroy Shenron if Krillin wanted. Fucking Yamcha might be able to kill Shenron if Yamcha wanted to. Yamcha never even won a single round of the fucking Tenkaichi Budokai. He never won once. He's a fucking chump. So even he could fucking blow up Shenron if he really wanted to. So it's like, Shenron has always been presented as something that has limits. since very, very early on, and that also, like, they take the piss out of Shenron constantly. The first wish on the Dragon Balls, as you say, is Oolong wishing for Gal's panties, right? Like, that's Garu no Panty o Kure, and he jumps up and he gets the panties and they land on his head because it's a, you know, Dragon Ball is silly and fun and goofy and good. And then constantly throughout the series, you see all these things where Shenron's like flummoxed or doesn't know what to do, or he's confused, or he gets impatient because they're taking fucking forever to make a goddamn wish again. And that stuff is very fun, where Shenron is characterized this way that's very fun. And this is actually something I really like about Dragon Ball Daima early on at the very beginning, is you have the bad guys make a wish on the Dragon Ball and they expect to get another wish. And Shenron's like, sorry, that's just an extra perk for my regulars. And then he fucks off, which is a great, like, random little thing to add of like, no, the extra wishes are just because he likes Goku and his friends. And this like weird dude who came out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, fuck you. I'm not giving you any extra wishes. Like, I fulfilled my contractual obligation and I'm going to go home. Like, that's great. Like, that's a good example of something modern in Dragon Ball that uses that well. Or Shenron using that in the superhero movie to give Piccolo his fucking power up, and he throws a little extra spice on there for Piccolo for him to turn into Orange Piccolo and Big Orange Piccolo, right?
And those are moments where, like, you can just tell Toriyama came up with that. Like, I know Toriyama didn't literally write Daima, but I would be shocked if that Shenron moment was not his idea, because it is such a perfectly Toriyama joke. It is the way like, these characters are not sacred in Toriyama, except in so much as he loves them and wants to have fun with them, and Shenron is included in that. And I've actually seen a lot of people on social media making a comparison between the Evil Dragons arc and that moment in Daima to show, like, that's what Dragon Ball actually is Shenron going, nah, the three wishes are just for my regulars. And, like, GT is so off the mark with that. It is so off the mark. And it is one of many ways Daima feels like a very conscious, I got business to settle, let's redo GT, but good this time. Yeah.
Yeah, because the other thing is just, like, the notion that a thing that Demon King Piccolo could just shoot a mouth laser at and blow up, that somehow is able to absorb all this negative energy that, if it's released, could destroy the galaxy. It's like, come on. Like, it just doesn't... It doesn't scan, it doesn't fit, it doesn't make sense. The way that Shenron's treated, particularly at the end, it's just so off the mark. And it's kind of like what you're saying with, like, the Super Android 17 arc, and it's true here as well, where it just kind of feels like the people coming up with these ideas, you know, there might not be bad ideas in a vacuum. Like, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this story narrative archetype. Obviously, I've watched like 8 TV shows that do this exact ending. So it's like, I like this ending if it's done in a series that is designed for this ending. But slapping it onto Dragon Ball just feels wildly inappropriate. And yeah, so that's a very long-winded answer to your original question of, is this a good ending?
I hate the impulse also of, like, well, we have to explain the thing, right? Of, like, the Dragon Balls, how did the wishes work? Well, they released negative energy and positive energy. It's like, I don't care. This would be like if, when they went to space on Namek, they started introducing, like, time dilation plots about, like, but if you're gone for 6 months, Gohan, it'll be 10 years on Earth. And it's like, no, that's not what Dragon Ball is. It's just fucking magic. Just let it be magical. There's something whimsical about it, you know? It's I hate when something childish becomes this dark and bad, or that the idea of how you make something serious is like this, where characters have to feel bad. There are plenty of ways Dragon Ball became or becomes more serious in a way that, like, the weight and the gravity of the storytelling is higher. And I think you see that in, like, the Frieza arc. You see that when, like, at the beginning of Demon King Piccolo, where, like, suddenly Kyurem is fucking dead on the floor, and we have to deal with that now, and we haven't had death in that way in Dragon Ball yet. Like, Toriyama was very good at modulating that and going back and forth between these registers, and I think part of it is that Toriyama understood that you can be both childish and serious, because to the child, your imagination can be very weighty and it can be very serious, and there is meaning and there is value to it. And I feel like a lot of GT it's like, well, we want to do a slightly more grown-up Dragon Ball once we're done with all of the lewd stuff. And the way we're going to do that is to be, like, gritty and violent, and we're going to make you feel bad about using the Dragon Balls, and we're just going to off Krillin so that Android 18 has motivation. We're going to do some reverse fridging here. And it's like, it feels like it is contemptuous of what is childish about Dragon Ball, instead of feeling like, how can we take the childish and stretch it and push it and find the depth in it, because there is a lot of depth in it. It's like my Peanuts example. There is a lot of depth to the Charlie Brown-Snoopy relationship. You don't have to kill Snoopy to be adult and, like, smart and gritty about it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that is the basic idea. We don't like it. But then, even if you could do this well, I think the execution is abysmal. I hate these episodes. I have heard the, like, these are some of the better episodes of GT from some people. I don't agree. I think this is as bad as just about anything in GT. It isn't as gross as the lewd stuff, and it isn't as, like, shambling as the Android 17 stuff, but it's often just as bad. I think it's completely tonally confused, because in the middle of trying to do this gritty, the Dragon Balls are evil now thing, all of the early dragons are basically comic relief villains, and I think it's bad comedy. It doesn't feel like Toriyama comedy. It just feels like it doesn't work. And then when it decides it wants to be serious, which is around when you get the 3 and 4 star dragons, who are the heat and cold dragons, it just becomes this, like, joyless slog. And the final 8 episodes with the 1-star dragon fight, I'm sorry, I could watch the entire Frieza arc in a fucking marathon and it wouldn't feel as long as those 8 episodes. It is so unnaturally, unnecessarily distended. And I just think on a dramaturgical level, these episodes are completely terrible. And they get a little better. I think the final 2 are probably the best of this arc. And they have a little bit more because they at least have an ending where things happen. But up to that point, this is abysmal. I do not like it. I will not defend these. I think they're terrible.
Yeah, I agree. Again, and I had fond memories of these. Like, I remember liking some of these episodes when I originally watched them, and that would have been in the English version on DVD forever ago. And I was disabused of the notion that these episodes are some of the better ones, because they're really not. Again, nothing in here is anywhere near as good as some of those early baby episodes, which were pretty good. You do get, like, I will say, like, if this, though, like, so the early Dragon Ball ones of them going and having a couple of one-off episodes where they find a dragon, they fight the dragon, they get the Dragon Ball at the end. Like, if this had been the starting point for GT, you know, obviously I don't know if you would have had to be evil dragons, but if when they went to space, it was like this, where each Dragon Ball was held by a one-off villain, and you have to defeat the villain, and they've got some sort of themed power. Here's the pollution one, here's the lightning one, whatever, here's the wind one. Like, that would be fine. You can do that. And I think that some of those early ones, the ones that are only one episode, those ones are fine. Like, they're acceptable. They're not great, but I'll take them. You know, like, I'll take, like, episode 49, the 2-star dragon one with the swamp. You know, like, again, it's not amazing, but it is a complete episode. Like, it's got a whole idea. The enemy has specific powers that you know, weakens you because it's, like, poisonous or whatever. So there it actually does kind of weaponize Goku's tendency to not take things seriously, and he just refuses to transform. It's like, well, now you can't transform because you've been fucking breathing in poisonous swamp fumes for fucking 30 minutes, and now you can't do it, and you're fucked. And then them getting thrown in and having to get this, like, one clear spot at the bottom of the lake. There's a little bit of a confusing thing where apparently they can just breathe underwater. I don't know. Like, that was very inexplicable to me. But at least there's a power the bad guy has. It's a specific power. Like, Goku gets fooled by that power, and then they have to, like, find a way around the power to win. It's not a great execution on that formula, but it's a formula, and that's what I had been wanting from the early stuff, so much more than here's 3 fucking episodes where we crash land on a planet that doesn't have a Dragon Ball on it and fuck around for 3 episodes, you know? Like, if this had been where that Black Star Dragon Ball arc was at, it would have been much better. You also have the, like, I think the other one that stands out to me as being one of the better ones here is episode 51, the 6-star dragon one, which is the one with the girl dragon, who then is actually not the girl, and there's a whole confusing moment with that. And I'm like, I don't know why that's in there. That's weird. I don't know why you took the only one that has a decent character design, which is the girl one, because she looks like a Dragon Quest character. I'm like, yeah, cool. That's a good design. And then it's like, no, actually, I've got an incredibly generic character design underneath my good character design. But that's not that important. And that one has, like, a couple of decent moments. I like the reveal that she was made through the wish for the panties. Like, that's, like, a dumb joke, and that feels like it lands decently well. And Pan reacts to it as like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And I like Goku laughing his ass off at learning about it. You know, like, some of that stuff is kind of fun. You've got the whole fishing village. So there's, like, a single episode plot line that they with a single episode villain that they build up. She's got magic wind powers and whatever. Like those episodes are fine. Where it starts to just go to complete shit is once you start getting these like multiple episode arcs where it's like, I think it's what the 7-star dragon one is 2 episodes. Then you get the 4-star and the 3-star dragon one that goes on for like 3.5 episodes. And that's where like once you start breaking out of that formula, it just gets so tedious because they don't really come up with stuff that is more eventful than those formulaic episodes. It's not like you couldn't have done the 4-star dragon in an episode and then have the 3-star dragon come in and just do that in one episode. It's just that they stretch those things out more and more. And it just, like, whatever little bit of momentum the show won with its, like, mediocre one-off episodes just completely goes down the drain as soon as they move away from that formula.
Yeah, I don't know, Sean, if I understand what you're saying. I don't think I can be even that relatively positive on those early ones. I think I would agree that the Ryu Shinran one, episode 51, is the best, if for the only reason that, as you say, it's the only character design of any of them that looks like a Toriyama creation, and I kind of like that. But I feel like I agree that the shape of those early episodes, and it's just the first 3, that's all it is. It's the first 3, and then you immediately go into 2-parters. I agree the shape of them is better, but it's kind of like having a nice car with no gas in it. I just feel like it's out of gas. It's like, okay, I can watch it and go like, yes, the shape of this is better, but there is no spirit animating this. It's really boring. When it's trying to be funny, it's not funny. The action is not good. I think the character designs are awful here. And I think, like, I also just am completely baffled by the choice of Goku and Pan go off alone and everyone else just stays behind. Like, what's everyone else doing? Like, a bunch of these fights are like, if you just had Gohan around to throw in some extra support, they'd be fine. But they decide to just do Goku and his granddaughter, and that's it. And it's a weird choice when you have the whole extended ensemble you could be playing with, and they choose to do none of that. And then it goes completely off the rails. Because, yeah, those first 3 episodes, are they the peak of this arc? Pretty much, yeah. But I think it is a low-energy peak, and it just kind of gets worse from there. Let's talk quickly, Sean. I do have the cast listed out for all 7 of these characters, because they did at least get a pretty good cast together for the 7, and we can talk about that. But also, let's talk about the issue of their character designs. We have praised Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru before, and I do think he is a very obviously talented character designer. He's very good at interpreting Toriyama's art. Right now on Dragon Ball Daima, you're seeing him doing really good work as the animation director on that. And I think a lot of his work here is good. Like, I will say one thing about the long 1-star dragon fight stretch and the whole thing with the 3 and 4-star dragon is it reminded me just how good the Super Saiyan 4 design is for Goku. Like, it gets a lot of good, like, coverage there in terms of shots. And, like, okay, good character designer, but those dragons look awful. And I think, you know, I don't know how much to blame Nakatsuru for that. He had to make 7 of these for a 17-episode stretch, which is a lot. And I don't think there was anything in the scripts or direction that was kind of giving an indication of what kind of characters they should be. But I think other than that, the dragon, the water dragon, the 6-star dragon, who, again, has kind of a Dragon Quest aesthetic to her, none of them look like they belong in a Toriyama movie or a Toriyama manga or anything. And I think particularly the 3 and 4-star dragon are, like, breathtakingly ugly just as creations. They just look like they belong out of something completely different entirely. And the 7-star dragon looks like a much more boring version of, like, Cell or Frieza. I just think, like, visually there's nothing to them, and I think part of it is that they are not characters. I think it's easy to forget that the character designer, they can't just pull this out of their ass. They need a character. Like, what is their motivation? What's their personality? What do they want? What is their relationship with Goku? And none of them really have that because they're things that just sprung up out of the Dragon Balls, and they want nothing except to destroy. You know, with Frieza, I can tell you all about the way he talks and his personality and the way he is kind of haughty and has a chip on his shoulder or something like that. But there's nothing at all going on with any of these characters other than the 6-star dragon has a little bit of a chip on her shoulder because she was created from the Panty Wish, and that's funny. But, like, that is another reason why I think Nakatsuru is just kind of like, they feel like doodles from his, like, kind of, I don't know, goth, edgy high school notebook, that it's like, let's pull those out. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, no, they're all of the designs outside of the Dragon Quest lady are terrible. Like the 1-star dragon of the ones that are the like dragon designs is the best of them, and even he is like you know, I don't know, take like the bad guy from the Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans thing, you know? Like, it's that level of like super low tier, like incredibly obscure Dragon Ball character, right? Like he's so uninteresting of a design. And I actually would also extend this to Super Android 17. I think it starts there. I think Super Android 17's design fucking sucks. It's got a little bit more to it because Android 17 is at least a character, and he has a design that you are vamping on with that. But his like weird, super long hair, his gigantic ears, I don't know why his ears are so huge, his stupid, edgy look where his fucking shoulders are uncovered and all that stuff. Like, Super Android 17 is a very bland, edgy, Hot Topic looking character that also has no real characterization under it. And that's one where even the voice actor, who's a really good voice actor, obviously it's just the same guy who does 17, he really struggles to do anything with that character because there's no There's no characterization under it. He's just a generic bad guy who's angry and wants to destroy things. And that's, as you say, what all of the dragons are. And so all the dragons' motivations are universal. They don't like Goku because he used the Dragon Balls, and then they want to destroy the Earth because I guess they're just evil bad guys. And that's it. And that's as far as it goes. And it makes you so wish we were back in the baby arc where that has lots of problems, the baby arc. Like, it's not perfect. It's not even great. But Baby is a villain that, like, has a personality, that he's got a motivation. Like, you're not confused about why Baby is doing what he is doing. He's trying to do this for revenge. You get, like, your whole dramatic irony thing of where the thing he hates more than anything is the Saiyans, but at the same time, he must become a Saiyan to try to destroy them, and the longer he spends in Vegeta's body, the more Saiyan-like he becomes as he seems to start enjoying the process of fighting Goku and all that kind of thing, and kind of reveling in his own power, and becoming obsessed with his own power. Again, I don't even like the Baby arc that much, but that's a storyline. Like, there's a villain there with a story and an arc to it. Here, it's just nothing. And it's nothing after nothing after nothing after nothing. It's a, like, series of nothing characters. And it's why the one-off episodes come off the best is because, well, I can be fine with a kind of nothing one-off villain for a single episode that you just deal with in that one episode. I've watched a lot of Sailor Moon. There are lots of episodes of Sailor Moon that do not have the most interesting one-off villains. And it's not about that as much. It's just about, like, having fun with your characters. This show doesn't even really do that well. But in particular, once you start getting to the multi-episode arcs, wherein you need to have more of a storyline, you need to have a personality to motivate what is distinguishing these storylines and what is distinguishing these characters across these episodes, that being absent, that just being vacant, it makes it so dull. And it's one of the main problems with the One-Star Dragon fight. It goes on forever, and you never get to a point where you feel like the One-Star Dragon is characterized in any way, shape, or form, other than he just wants to destroy things. That's a lot of time to spend on a villain that has as much characterization as, like, Super Janemba, from the Fusion Reborn movie, who's around for, like, 10 minutes in that film. It's bad. It's just bad.
It's really bad, yeah. Well, and also with Nakatsuru's designs, we talked about this last time, but the Baby arc, when they steer out of the sort of Black Star Dragon Ball Grand Tour thing and go into this kind of like cyberpunk planet, metallic designs, robots, all of that stuff, Nakatsuru is in his element there. He's really good at all that. And so the show looks really good. Baby is a striking design. The places they go look great. When you get back to Earth, I think his redesigns of the characters are pretty good. And of course, then you get into all the stuff with the giant apes, and I think he's pretty good playing with that as well, all the way up to the introduction of Super Saiyan 4. But then in this arc, it's just, I mean, I don't know if anyone could have done a better job with this, but it does not play to his strengths as a designer. At least the dragons have some good voice actors. You want to go through these really quick here, Sean? So I'm just going to go in the order of the stars on the ball because that is the easiest way to do it. Because I'm not going to remember what order they show up in. I'm just not going to do that. So the one-star dragon, our big bad, is Shibata Hirakatsu, who we have talked about on this show before because he is King Bradley in all versions of Full Metal Alchemist. We praised his voice to the Earth and back, or to the Moon and back in those episodes because he is so good. He's a great villain voice. He also voices Monkey D. Dragon, Luffy's dad in One Piece. He's good there. And it is a good villain voice, although I got increasingly frustrated with how little he had to do and how much he was having to lean on kind of the Saturday morning cartoon villain affectations. Because this guy can, because I'm hearing King Bradley in there and going, he can be the best villain in the fucking world if you let him be, and you're giving him nothing.
Yes, yeah, he's got a great voice. I love this actor. He is also the third Hokage in Naruto, so I've got that connection to him as well. Obviously, he's in fucking everything, He's like, do you have a tough old dude in your anime? Cast Shibata as him, and you're like good to go. And so it's like, yeah, he's got the charisma in the voice to carry the character a little bit, but they don't give him anything to play at a certain point. Like, I think the first episode in which the One-Star Dragon is introduced, it's fairly effective because he's just so completely overwhelming Goku. And I think like Shibata's got so much power in that voice that works fine. But the longer it goes on, the less it works because you need something more underneath that to support the performance, and there's just nothing there. There's no dynamism to the character to support the number of episodes he's in, so it just feels like a real waste of a really great actor.
Yes. The 2-star dragon, the pollution dragon, is Chafudin. That is their stage name. They are a prolific character actor who have been in a lot of things. We've heard them as the recast version of Jimba Ral in Gundam The Origin, and you'll hear them in other places as well. Then you've got the 3-star dragon, who is Shiozawa Kanato. We've talked about him before because he is the original Makuve in Gundam. We love him. And he was the one-off voice of Goemon Ishikawa in Lupin III, The Fuma Conspiracy, where they recast the roles for that one time. And we talked about there, he tragically died young and was very beloved in the industry when he passed away. In Dragon Ball, he also voiced Namu in the original Dragon Ball, who is there at... Is he at the original Tenkaichi Budokai or one of the later ones? Okay.
Yeah. He's Goku's second opponent in the original Tenkaichi Budokai. He's also the one who fights Ranfan. Where she undresses and all that stuff. Yes, he's very good. Right. He is also, if you're a fan of Hokuto no Ken or Fist of the North Star, he's Rei, who's one of like the really popular characters from that series. Right. Yeah, he's just like a great voice actor. Obviously, tragically died fairly young. But just like that kind of like sniveling bad guy thing, he's very, very good at. So it's like he's good as the 3-star dragon. I think it's one of the best performances because the 3-star dragon. If the 3-star dragon is the most heavily characterized of all of them in many ways, just because he's like just an absolute fucking dick, and so there's something there. And Shiozawa is so good at playing that kind of character that the 3-star dragon probably comes out maybe the best of all the dragons, just in terms of like a writing and characterization point of view. An awful character design. The character design is complete garbage. It's just a blue version of the 4-star dragon, which already is a terrible character. But in terms of the performance and the writing, he's probably the most interesting of all of them.
I agree, because I feel like he creates a dynamic with some stakes, because Goku and the 4-star dragon have this kind of relationship, and they get to have like a rivalry, and then the 3-star dragon throws a wrench in the works, and so there's an actual kind of like malice between Goku and the 3-star dragon, and Shiozawa definitely, sinks his teeth into that. As the 4-star dragon, we have Yamaguchi Ken in lots of stuff. I will note here he was Blueberry in Dragon Ball Z, who is one of Frieza's early henchmen. And
which one is that? Can you describe that one?
Yeah, well, he's blue, for one, but he is the one who I think when they get to Namek is like, he looks like a little like dinosaur dude, and it's Blueberry and there's another guy with him, and I think at one point they like capture Kuririn and Gohan, and then they fight back and beat them up.
Are they the ones that blow up the spaceship when they find it? Like right at the beginning? Yes. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So that's who he is in Dragon Ball. I want to just say it here. The 4-star dragon, I feel like, is the only part of this where I'm like, there's potential here. And it goes so untapped because the idea of it's the 4-star dragon. Like, there should be a relationship there. Like, how cool would it be if the 4-star dragon came out and was just unabashedly Goku's ally through this, because Goku loved the 4-star ball and it was his grandpa's ball and it was like animated by that spirit and it overcame the negative energy, and they like flirt with that idea a couple of times and he helps Goku out in the end, but like they never want to commit to that idea, and so he's just sort of a halfway character pulled between bad and good and is pretty boring. His powers are kind of cool, but his character design is awful. I feel like that is a place where you could have done a cool character and they get like 25% of the way there and then never put their foot on the gas.
Yeah, I agree that it feels like they sort of gesture towards it, but they don't really commit to it. Yeah.
Then you've got the 5-star dragon, who is the electricity one, who is one of the silliest and worst, voiced by poor Suzuoki Hirotaka, who we love because he is the one and only Tenshinhan, the one and only Captain Bright. He's Giovanni in Pokemon. He's many, many others. But in Dragon Ball GT, they had him play Lude, the fucking pedophile guy, and the 5-star dragon who is the goofiest, stupidest dragon. Poor Suzuoki. He deserved better. Come on, guys.
Yes, this is, I think, the worst of all the dragons. Like, this episode, It's so boring. It's so incredibly boring. And this is one of the ones that I owned the DVD that had this episode on it. And the only thing I remembered about it was that it was on that DVD. So I was like, I knew I'd seen it before. I was like, I know I've seen all this before, but man, I don't, like, I remembered most of, like, the swamp one. I remembered most of the girl one. That one is right in that batch. And I was like, nope. I know I've definitely seen this multiple times because I watched those DVDs a couple times back in the day. But man, that episode made zero impression on me at all.
The 6-star dragon is the girl one, the water dragon, yes. And they have 2 voices for the 2 genders, the girl and the boy form. The girl form is Katsuki Masako, who we will know very well on this show as Reko Alande in Zeta Gundam, and you would know as Sailor Neptune in Sailor Moon, and lots of other stuff. She's very prolific.
Also, I gotta rep my Naruto stuff. She is also Tsunade, also the 5th Hokage. Tsunade becomes the 5th Hokage in Naruto. So we have 2 Hokages here represented amongst the dragons. And they're 2 of the better ones. It's the 6-star and 1-star. Our Hokages, they're putting in the work, I'll say.
Yes, Katsuki is good here. She's funny. Sean, I have the same issue with Naruto that you have with One Piece when we're putting these notes together, where I don't know who is and isn't important in Naruto, so I just wind up leaving them off. Just as you,
because every actor is in Naruto and in One Piece. They're all in it, like, at some point. And so, yes, unless you know the series, if you're looking at their things, you don't know. It's like, is this an important character, or were they just in one episode of it? Because everybody's been in one episode of One Piece, but were they an important character in episodes of One Piece?
Yeah, you have to have seen One Piece to know that. But anyway, Katsuki, she plays the girl form, and then when we get the boy form, we get Otomo Ryuzaburo, who is, like, way overqualified for what they ask him to do. I mean, this guy, he was Dabura in DBZ, he's Crocodile in One Piece, so one of the most major recurring villains, obviously wonderful voice, and he later took over Shenlong and Gyumao in Dragon Ball Super when Gori Daisuke died. So, great voice actor, you'll hear him in a lot of things. Completely wasted here because it's like a 2-minute form of the character, so I don't know why they had to get someone who's that heavy a hitter, but that's who they got.
Yep, yeah, he's got a line of dialogue, he's there.
And finally, the 7-star dragon is another Dragon Ball favorite. It's Aomori Shin. He is Kibito Kai in all other Dragon Ball media. Even in Dragon Ball Daima, he returned as the adult version of Kibito. Kibito gets shrunk down, and then, like everyone else, he's got a different mini voice. But Aomori Shin has always been Kibito. He also, I did not know this until I looked this up, voiced Hildegard in DBZ movie 13. So he's been around for a while. That is the earthquake/mole guy who in the first part. It becomes a 2-parter, and the second part I hate. The first part I actually kind of liked because I think Aomori's performance is funny, and the mole-like character design is so stupid and pathetic, it kind of like shoots the moon and comes back to being kind of fun. And I think in that episode there's something fun going on there. Then it turns into an episode where we have to spend 20 minutes with Goku agonizing over whether or not he will murder Pan, and I have to be like, why is this Dragon Ball? Why are we spending a whole episode with Goku wondering whether or not he's gonna fucking kill his granddaughter? Who wanted this? It's putting down Snoopy all over again. It is so off the wall. But for that first part, I do like what Aomori is asked to do here because the character is kind of fun in a pathetic way.
Yeah, that second part you're talking about, that's a good example of where, like, their writing for Goku is just terrible this series, because Goku's just a moron, because he doesn't come up with, like, a good way to do it. Like, he legitimately is trying to kill Pan, and then is like, but I can't do it. But it's not like, and I've got some sort of, like, incredible scheme I'm going to, like, crack to try to do this. It's like, no, it's like I'm legitimately trying to fire whatever the fuck a 10 times Kamehameha is at you. And I just, I keep on stopping myself.
Yeah. It sucks. So anyway, those are our 7 actors. None of them suck. They're all good. They're doing their best. I mean, it is some of, like, our, some, like, real, like, Dragon Ball favorites in there. And some other just great voice actors. But boy, these 7 dragons combined do not add up to one baby. And baby is not the equal of any other villain from actual Toriyama Dragon Ball. So boy, we're in a fucking desert here, Sean, in terms of villains.
Yeah, it's pretty empty in terms of places to find something of interest here.
And then you get to the actual 1-star dragon fight, And it is just such an unholy slog. The structure of that fight is everything I hate about the way Dragon Ball GT does battles, where, and I said this before, but it is that the villain is overwhelming and Goku can do nothing against the villain whatsoever. Super Saiyan 4, worst form, can't do shit. And it's in every episode you get like some kind of Deus Ex Machina comes in where suddenly the one-star dragon can't do shit against Goku and everything's fucked up. But then by the end of the episode, rug is pulled out from under us and we're back to the status quo and nothing matters and you could cut most of these episodes. So you have Vegeta shows up, yay Vegeta! And then you have, they're going to do the fusion and we get Gogeta for an episode, which is probably my favorite of these because I like Gogeta and it's kind of fun. But then by the end, we took too long and the fusion never mattered and they never fuse again. I thought that they beat him with Gogeta, and I was so wrong about that. Gogeta just doesn't matter. Then you have the 4-star dragon comes back, but the 4-star dragon dies. And it just is over and over and over again. Every episode is this fucking bait and switch where it's like, is something going to happen? No. And we just go on until we end with the end of the Buu arc where we do a big Genki Dama, and it sucks. And like, Vegeta is here, and that is fun because Ryo Horikawa is great, and it gives Goku someone to bounce off of. But it is such a thin version of Vegeta because Vegeta has not been in any of GT. There is no real character arc here except a vague extension of where he was at the end of Z. You get none of what like Dragon Ball Super did with Vegeta, where Super is actually interested in like, what kind of life does Vegeta build after he has admitted Goku is better? Like, who does he become? And that is, like, honestly, Vegeta is, like, the star of Super, I think, in that way. Because where Goku gets a little flanderized, Vegeta, I think, is pretty significantly deepened by asking that question. Here he is just Vegeta, and he respects Goku now. And stupid stuff happens, and it is so boring, and it is so tedious, and I was just crawling over the finish line of this thing, Sean. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's really brutal. It's because this is where you get the problem of the only one thing happens in an episode, and it's just like, that is incredibly boring for a fight. And that's what you're talking about. Like, either our side is winning or the 1-star dragon is winning, and that's it. And that's it for that episode. And there's no drama there. And really, I think what it is, if you try to break down this fight, what they really have done is they have just taken the kind of home stretch of the Buu saga, and they have taken what is in that, a plot line that is like a series of different events that build on and pay off things. And instead they have just taken those and made them plot points that exist as individual episodes that do not connect or have any relationship to each other at all. Because I want to lay this out a little bit. This is my grand theory of how this fight is structured. Because let's like look at where the end of the Buu arc and where it sort of has parallels here, right? So at the end of the Buu arc, you have Buu has absorbed Gohan and all of them, and it's seemingly hopeless. Goku's there. He's failed to fuse with Gohan. What do? Oh no. Vegeta shows up out of nowhere. It's like, Vegeta's here. Oh my god, I can fuse with Vegeta. He fuses with Vegeta, turns into Vegito. Vegito is absolutely overwhelmingly powerful, handily defeating Buu. But Vegito is then absorbed by Buu, but Vegito is really trying to accomplish a secondary objective. So Vegito doesn't defeat Buu, but Vegito accomplishes a secondary objective of being able to free Gohan and the others, and then critically Majin Buu. That's actually an important thing that he frees that leads us into the final arc. So Vegito is absorbed and defuses surprisingly. It is not able to defeat Buu, but accomplishes an important secondary objective. Then we get, continuing with the fight, you get Kid Buu, and then Goku and Vegeta are trying to fight Kid Buu, and neither of them are really powerful enough to take on Kid Buu. And that's where they need to come up with a way to defeat Kid Buu. That's when Majin Buu comes in, Fat Buu. He comes up, and he is there, and he can distract Kid Buu. While he's distracting Kid Buu, Vegeta cracks the Spirit Bomb plan, and he gets Goku to start making a Spirit Bomb. Goku makes a giant Spirit Bomb, and they have to get energy from everybody on Earth. They make a giant Spirit Bomb, they throw the Spirit Bomb, they defeat Buu. That's a sequence of events, but that is a whole plot line that what that is really doing is that is paying off of all of the story arcs we've had. Of Vegeta's story arc comes to a great like sort of climax there of where he has learned to trust Goku, and then also sort of like, say, Kakarot, you're number one. We get all of the Majin Buu and Mr. Satan stuff that gets incredible payoff there, where we've had Majin Buu's character arc that then got stopped when he got absorbed by Evil Boo, and then that now intersects back into the main storyline, and then we get Mr. Satan coming back in, and Mr. Satan gets his great heroic moment where he is the critical thing that brings the spirit bomb and all the energy we need together. So it's like, it's a great plot line. The Boo arc is very messy, but I think that last stretch of the Boo arc is really good, and is really good at picking all the little important bits we had built along the way and having a really great, memorable conclusion. Let's now look at what we do here in the Shadow Dragon arc with the One-Star Dragon fight. So Goku's trying to fight the One-Star Dragon, and he's not strong enough. He can't defeat him. Vegeta shows up out of nowhere. Vegeta's here. Great, Vegeta's here. What we can do with Vegeta is we can fuse. We fuse and we make Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is wildly more powerful than the One-Star Dragon, but is not able to defeat the One-Star Dragon before he is defused. But he accomplishes seemingly a secondary objective. In this case, it's he kicks the big negative energy ball and through some mumbo jumbo turns it into a positive energy ball, which destroys the negative energy clouding Earth, which was a plot point I didn't remember because it was from the first episode of this arc, that there's a shadow energy around the Earth that's keeping Kaioshin from being able to see what's happening on Earth. But that is the secondary objective. That's the equivalent of them saving Gohan and Boo. I'm not going to comment yet on how that's not good writing here. So they do that, but Gogeta fuses surprisingly out of nowhere. Uh-oh, we're no longer fused. Well, now we need to try to defeat the One-Star Dragon, and we can't fuse. Here they spend an entire episode trying to fuse and can't do it, and it's just terrible, rather than having them trying to like legitimately fight the One-Star Dragon, like they do with Kid Buu. But that's when seemingly all hope is lost. Oh, well, an enemy that was absorbed by the bad guy comes back surprisingly out of nowhere and is now our ally and is fighting on our side, and that's the 4-Star Dragon. Here, though, instead of the 4-Star Dragon doing something important, the 4-Star Dragon is just unceremoniously killed off within the episode. He's reintroduced. So now we have to defeat the bad guy. How do we do that? Well, we have to make a spirit bomb. We make a spirit bomb. How do we get the spirit bomb enough energy? Well, we have to send our voice across now, not just to Earth, but to everywhere in the galaxy and all those memorable places we visited along the way. And they all get to give energy to the spirit bomb, and the spirit bomb is able to destroy the One-Star Dragon. So in the sort of broad plot points, it's very, very similar to what they're doing. The problem is that here, instead of this being the culmination of a long plot line and being like having setup and payoff, it's all just individual things. That this is one episode. Here's the episode where they're Gogeta. It's like, okay, here's the episode where they're trying to fight the One-Star Dragon, and because they defuse from Gogeta and they can't defeat him. That's one episode. That's all that happens. And they really just try to fuse. Okay, now here's the one episode where the 4-Star Dragon comes back, but he's destroyed and disposed of within that one episode, and thus doesn't accomplish anything. They don't have him fight the One-Star Dragon when they're trying to make the Spirit Bomb or anything like that. He just accomplishes nothing, but he serves broadly the role of like the absorbed enemy comes back and is now actually our ally. And then we get Goku making the Spirit Bomb, but instead of it being a big team effort of everybody has to work together, we all have to come together and hatch this plan. And some of the things we have done, like saving Dende and Mr. Satan and Majin Buu, those are critical things that if Vegito had not saved Majin Buu, if Goku had not instant transmitted Dende and all of them off of that planet, onto the Supreme Kai's planet, none of this would have worked. We wouldn't have been able to get the Dragon Balls, to wish Earth back, all that stuff, right? There's a whole series of events that all these things are building on one another so that we can all participate into making the giant Spirit Bomb. We can pay off Vegeta's character arc in that moment. We pay off Majin Buu's character arc that he's a good guy now in this moment. And we pay off Mr. Satan's character arc if he gets to be the hero that we all know he can be because he has a good heart. All of that gets paid off, and then Goku gets to throw the Spirit Bomb, and then he gets to say, thank you, Dragon Balls, as he destroys Kid Buu because his energy comes back because Dende wishes for his power to come back, right? Like, that's a great finale. Here, instead, them making the Spirit Bomb is just, we think Goku's dead, we're going to do a suicide charge against the One-Star Dragon and can't do anything because nobody who's not Goku can do anything against anyone in this entire series. Even Goku can barely do things against people until the last episode of the arc. And then Goku just comes up out of nowhere. Goku doesn't need anybody to buy time for him because he just can fucking tank shots from the One-Star Dragon seemingly endlessly, and it's fine, even though he's just regular form Goku. So I don't know why Super Saiyan 4 Goku was getting his ass kicked, because just regular Goku can just take these like full power blows and is just not even flinching from it. You get the energy from everybody in the universe. But one of the things that's wild is I think the logic of the events is supposed to be that the thing that Gogeta accomplished that's important is that he wiped out the negative, like, miasma around Earth that prevented telepathic communication. But the thing that's crazy is that they don't actually dramatically make that connection in the moment. Like, I'm logically putting that together because I'm trying to make sense of what they have written. But in the moment when Gogeta somehow destroys the negative energy around Earth, the thing they show is now Supreme Kai / Kaioshin, he can now see what's happening on Earth. But then when Goku's making the fucking spirit bomb, that's not involved at all. It's Kai-Osama, it's King Kai. And he gets involved and has to send the message around everyone in the galaxy. So it's like, while technically, I think the logic is supposed to be that the only way Goku could communicate with King Kai is if Gogeta did the shit that destroyed the negative energy. Dramatically, they don't actually build that bridge at all. It should have been Supreme Kai, because that is the thing that Gogeta accomplished. So even the one thing that happened that actually sort of bridges multiple episodes, Gogeta, even that they don't actually dramatically tie that knot together. I have to dramatically tie that knot together after I finished watching it in my head, trying to make sense of what has happened. And so it's just this, like, really incredibly, excruciatingly boring series of disconnected plot events that are just like when my students try to copy another kid's homework, you know, and it's like, oh, I like copied like half of his answers, but I spelled some of the words wrong because I couldn't see it very well, and I misunderstood what one of the sentences was, so I didn't actually write it in the right plot or in the right place. And it's like, well, copying the answer is not going to do anything for you, and if you're someone who's copying the answer, you're probably not even copying it the right way because you don't understand what to write. And that's exactly what Dragon Ball GT feels like. It's just copying Dragon Ball Z's homework at the end of Buu, but it doesn't know how do any of these parts actually fit together as a story, as drama, as action. All it knows is here are isolated plot incidents, and if we have the bad guy who comes back, who is absorbed, who comes back as a good guy, well, that will be a big, cool moment, the way Majin Buu fighting Kid Buu was. Like, oh, if we have Gogeta fused together, that will be a big, cool moment like Vegito, even though, in the moment, it doesn't feel like Gogeta does anything important. Gogeta just fucks around and defuses after doing fucking nothing, because him dispelling the negative energy around Earth does not feel important the way that saving Gohan, Piccolo, Goten, Trunks, and Fat Buu, that feels really important in the moment. Vegito accomplishes something that the audience has investment in, and it's just, man, you could not, if you're trying, make a more incompetent series of like plot events as what they do here at the end of the One Star Dragon arc. And it's like 5 fucking episodes of this shit just slowly dragging its feet across each individual plot point, spending an entire fucking episode on each one. It is just the most brutal fucking viewing experience you can imagine.
Thank you, Sean, for that very exhaustive but very revealing analysis. I had not thought of it in comparison to the entirety of the home stretch of the Buu arc, but I think you're so right. One thing it highlights for me is I think the Buu arc is underrated as a piece of storytelling. Yes. And we can have that. We've had that conversation before on here, I know. Like, because I think people focus on the, like, kind of messy Gohan to Goku protagonist transition and not on that the closing stretch of Buu is maybe the tightest storytelling Toriyama ever did in some sense. Like, the number of character arcs that intersect and are resolved there, and the way that, like, that feels like the moment he kind of has to end the series afterwards with a little epilogue, because so many things get tied together so powerfully there. It's really beautiful stuff. And I agree, you can definitely see where they are copying the homework, but they are copying it very, very poorly, because, like, it's true if you go on paper that Vegito, the Potara fusion, is not around that long and doesn't defeat the enemy. But I don't think anyone watches or reads the Buu arc and goes, man, Vegito kind of sucked and didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
There's a real sense that, like, Vegito is cool and has a personality and has an important role in the story. And when they don't refuse at the end, you also understand why the characters have done that, because Goku and Vegeta are who they are and they have other priorities here, blah, blah, blah. But in GT, it's like you get the initial rush of, oh, a new character, I like Gogeta, I like hearing Ryo Horikawa and Masuko Nozawa do their voices together, that's really fun. But it's just, nothing comes of it. There's no big, cool, like, fight moments. There's no, like, you know, Gogeta is in the Fusion Reborn movie 12, for like 5 minutes at the end, but they get so much good focus in terms of like a couple of really cool moves they get to do, a couple of really big moments of personality, and it's enough that the fandom kept wanting more Gogeta for years and years until we got Gogeta's triumphant return in Dragon Ball Super Broly, which is the best version of Gogeta. Yep. But like here, it's just kind of like a cool thing that livens up the episode, but by the end you feel like, well, why even introduce Gogeta? Because I don't feel like we moved the ball forward. I think that's the thing that people sometimes forget and don't understand about Toriyama's storytelling, is that, like, yes, does it often fall to Goku to save the day at the very end? Yes. But are other characters constantly moving the ball forward to get us there? Also yes. And that's the big thing GT just congenitally cannot wrap its head around, is the idea of moving the ball forward before we get to the big ending where everything is wrapped up miraculously at once. And it's part of what makes this feel, again, like dramaturgically so limp and lifeless and dull.
Yeah. And the thing with Vegito is that, like, he is not trying to obliterate Buu. Like, that's explicitly not what he's trying to do. And, like, in the moment, he's toying with Buu constantly, and you don't know until he gets absorbed that, oh, he's goading Buu. The whole point is he's goading Buu the entire time. He cuts off his little fucking head tail to create an opportunity for Buu to be able to absorb him. So it's like Vegito is on some fucking 4D chess shit. So it's like Vegito is overwhelmingly powerful. He is overwhelmingly competent. Like, so Vegito does everything Vegito is trying to do. Right? And that doesn't necessarily end the fight, but that's because he doesn't want to blow up both of his kids on either side of that equation for Goku and for Vegeta, right?
Yes.
Or all three of the kids, because you have Gohan and Goten in there. And then obviously also Trunks. Whereas like Gogeta, in here, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, is nominally, he's trying to just obliterate the one-star dragon. He just wants to fucking put this motherfucker in the ground. He hits him with the Big Bang Kamehameha, which is the most fucking limp-ass shit you have ever seen from someone's big super move. It's like a big ball and then like a transparent little like filter of blue energy. It's like you don't get blasted. Like pieces of fucking one-star dragon don't come off. You know, he doesn't get knocked back into a mountain and create a giant nuclear explosion. It's like he stands there and it's like Gogeta shines a fucking blue flashlight on the guy. The effect is so incredibly lame. The one-star dragon takes the Big Bang Kamehameha complete in the face, doesn't defend it, can't do anything against it, and it just doesn't work. And so Gogeta's like, oh, well, let me do another Big Bang Kamehameha, and that's when he defuses, and it's like, that's lame as shit. That's so lame. Like, it's just, can you imagine if it's like, you know, you're watching professional wrestling and The Rock, like, uses the people's elbow on some motherfucker, and it's like, oh, but that didn't finish him. Oh, well, I'll just try to use the people's elbow again. You know, it's like, no, that's not how that works. Like, at the end, if fucking Ultraman's fighting the fucking giant monster, and he uses his Specium Beam, which is his special move, and it doesn't seal the deal, like, he doesn't just try to use the Specium Beam again, and then either does or doesn't work. Like, that's just terrible fucking writing and terrible fight choreography. It's just, like, you can't understand how and why are they doing this? And then also, like, that's like beyond just their inability to draw and animate the thing to make it feel powerful and impressive. Like, again, I'm watching original Dragon Ball. Like, Big Bang Kamehameha from Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta doesn't do shit compared to how cool it is when Master Roshi blows up Mount Frypan with the first Kamehameha you ever see.
Yes.
That shit is fucking life-changing. It's awesome. Like, the whole screen goes white, and everybody, like, gets knocked away into fucking brick walls, and they're, like, blinded by how powerful it is, and the whole mountain is completely fucking leveled. Like, it's amazing how well it's done. And this is the first time they ever did it. It's like, how many times have we drawn a giant fucking energy beam in Dragon Ball at this point? You should know how to do it and make it look cool. And the fact that Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's big special move, like, the games basically have to invent what it looks like, because the way it looks in the show is absolute dog shit. And it's one of the many things that makes Super Saiyan 4 in Dragon Ball GT feel weak and lame as hell. Whatever you think about the designs and how cool they are to play as in the games, I don't know how you come out of watching this TV show thinking narratively in terms of how it's depicted that Super Saiyan 4 is powerful and that Super Saiyan 4 is cool. Super Saiyan 4 feels like, I don't know, Trunks' lame, I'm going to make myself very big and tough transformation where he can't do shit. That's what Super Saiyan 4 is. It can't do shit against fucking anybody. It sucks.
The only thing it really accomplishes is that they let Goku be adult Goku now, and they let Masuko Nozawa do some cool vocalizations with kind of this edgelord Goku, and that can be kind of fun, but that's it. It doesn't accomplish anything in terms of fight choreography or power or anything like that. Absolutely. Do not like. I know, Sean, you also mentioned last week that you were not as sold on the Super Saiyan 4 designs for Vegeta or Gogeta. I agree. I think the Goku one is by far the best, and I don't think the design language applies to the other two as well. I don't have any dislike for them, really, but I wondered if you wanted to talk about that briefly.
I just think they're not as interesting. I think Vegeta's is kind of fine. He doesn't do anything. That's one of the things I forgot is that Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta doesn't have a fight. Like, the games have to basically invent everything for that character because he doesn't do anything. I more have a problem with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. I think goes too far. I think there's a rule of thumb for Toriyama in Dragon Ball, which is that sleeker is better and sleeker is more powerful. And that's like the design language of Dragon Ball going all the way back to basically the very beginning. That's why like Frieza's finals form is he shrinks down and gets more compact. The Perfect Cell shrinks down and gets compact. Boo, as he goes up, shrinks down and gets compact. Super Saiyan 2 is a sleeker version of Super Saiyan 1, where he pushes that a little bit in a different direction. There's a Super Saiyan 3, but he also deliberately depicts Super Saiyan 3 as being an impractical transformation that is like the one Super Saiyan transformation that can't seal the deal because it's not practical, right? It's too much. It's excessive, and it's intentionally excessive, both in design and in terms of impact of the characters who try to use it, whether it's Gotenks or Goku. So there, him defying that design rule is done for a narrative purpose. And here, I think I can kind of excuse the Super Saiyan 4 Goku being like, he's a bit kind of buffer and stuff like that, and it's a bit more wild and kind of bigger, his hair's bigger, all that kind of stuff, because you're also adding the little kid Goku turning into adult Goku. I think kind of alters that dynamic in a way that makes that design language work a bit better for me. Whereas for Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, it's just too much. His hair is ridiculously huge. They make because his muscles are really, really big, they make the fusion vest on him is also weirdly really big. And so it's very extra. It's got this more 90s sensibility of we want it to be bigger, we want it to be more flashy. And I think it's one of the things that contributes to Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta here feeling kind of weak to me, is that I also think the design language of him in the world of Dragon Ball feels like a guy who's very flashy but doesn't have a lot to back it up, which is kind of funny because that is sort of what the narrative shows us, compared to like Super Saiyan 1 Gogeta in the Fusion Reborn movie or Gogeta you see in the Super Broly movie, where he is the sleekest, coolest fucking character. His whole design communicates that he's like fast and fierce. And he's also, compared to Janemba or Broly, he's small, he's compact, and he feels incredibly powerful. And here it's the opposite. Like, he feels like he's on stature, more or less equivalent to One Star Dragon, because he's buffed up a lot. And that just kind of, to me, it feels very off. And I think they have a hard time trying to communicate that character being powerful in multiple ways. And I think design is part of that as well.
Yeah, I would largely agree with that. I like the design. This is a small thing, I guess, but I like the design of his face. I think it's a good recreation of the kind of melded Goku Vegeta thing that you see in Gogeta in the movie that you'll see in Super Broly when we eventually get there. And so I think it's expressive in close-ups and looks good. I would agree that, like, when you see the full body, it's not as striking as like Super Saiyan 4
Yes.
Goku or other versions of him. And I think that's what you're saying here. Or like in the Broly movie, when you get there and you have Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta, there's something very striking about the overall like ensemble and everything. Whereas there's just something, it's like kind of more is the design aesthetic that you get here. And that is kind of a law of diminishing returns. And I think in this arc, there's also just a lot of like bulk for the sake of bulk. You get it on, I think the One Star Dragon is just kind of bulky for the sake of bulky in a lot of it. Even Kid Goku near the end, has like too many muscles for a little kid. I don't know how else to say it, but it's weird. It's not how, and I understand that this is not literally Kid Goku from Dragon Ball. There being some differences is appropriate, but I do think he gets to a point where it's like, once again, I'm wondering, why did they not just revert him to an adult at the end of the baby arc? Because it doesn't feel like they want to do anything with him as a kid. They just want him to be an adult. That's why he spends most of this arc in Super Saiyan 4 form. They don't want him to be a kid. That's not the point of the story anymore. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Is it time to talk about the ending, Sean?
Yeah, let's talk about the ending.
All right. So going back to my notes, I want to read some thoughts from the people who made the ending about what they were intending here. The ending of Dragon Ball GT, I think it's fair to say, is generally pretty well regarded in the fandom. Not necessarily everyone loves it, but I think it is the part of GT that is maybe least controversial in that people think it's at least going for something interesting. The idea of Goku sort of passing on somewhat ambiguously, which is the ending of the story, was planned from early in the development of GT. The producer Morishita Kozo said in the 2005 Dragon Box interview that with that last scene, right from when Dragon Ball GT began, we had decided, let's do it like this. Not knowing whether Goku is alive or dead, that sort of image. It was precisely because that scene had already been decided upon that we were able to have Goku make his impressive appearance at the end of the TV special. Since the special was an original story, it required far more manpower, labor, and money than simply airing two regular TV episodes, but even in that regard, GT gave us a free hand to work with. Then you have the writer, Maekawa Atsushi. He also spoke about the ending in that Dragon Box interview. Asked about why they had the series end with Goku going away on Shenlong's back, he said, to be honest, in GT episode 63, just before the final episode, a big change comes over Goku. Those who watched carefully might have noticed, but in that episode, Goku, who takes Yi Shenlong's attack, sinks to the bottom of a deep hole. That is the turning point. Afterward, Goku still continues the battle, but what's different from before is that he's cloaked in an aura that won't let any attack near him. It might be that he died there, or it might be that he became something else entirely. I'll leave that decision to the imaginations of everyone who watched. However, the Goku up to that point that everyone knows clearly does not appear after that. In the world of Dragon Ball, Goku had already died multiple times, and up till then, each time he appeared with a halo over his head. However, I didn't want to go with the usual concept of even when he dies, he comes right back to life. I wanted the viewers to picture death in that way and feel a sadness close to it in reality, so I had a change come over Goku. After that, once he defeats the dragon and grants the final wish, Goku goes right off with Shenlong and the Dragon Balls to somewhere that people definitely can't get to, while wishing that people will be able to get by on their own strength in a world without the Dragon Balls, and Vegeta is the only one who notices where he's headed. Except I personally go ahead and imagine that Goku might unexpectedly show up just at Chi-Chi's from time to time. Yes, unexpectedly. ... And then we have Nakatsuru Katsuyoshi. He personally drew the final scene of the series where Goku turns around towards the audience as he's walking away from the Tenkaichi Budokai. In the Golden Warrior art book from the late 2000s, he recalled his thoughts at the time of finishing the key animation. I was very solemn, thinking, once I draw this, then that's the end. Later I thought, despite having drawn him for so long, I'm not much like Goku. Laughs. It's amazing that even though it's been over 10 years since then, the series is still loved throughout the world. The way manga is read and the way a series endures have changed since I was a child. It's become so that a work can be passed down and loved by 2, even 3 generations of fathers and sons. I think it's similar to how in America, characters like Superman continue to be drawn and loved for decades. Maybe if Dragon Ball had been born in America, they would have changed the writer and made lots of sub-story type works. All right, so that is the comments from the people involved. As for you and I, Sean, I had seen the ending to GT before, many, many years ago, on the individual DVD volumes. So I knew the ending. There were bits of it that had stuck with me throughout the years that still got me this time. I think the 2 moments of the ending that really work for me are Goku's final conversation with Kuririn, I think is very nice, and I like that scene. And then the moment when the dragon is flying away, which is a spectacular little piece of animation, and Goku lies on his back and says, Shenlong's back sure is warm. That's a great moment. I think the rest of it I feel kind of conflicted about in the way I feel conflicted about a lot of this arc, and that it feels like the ending to a different story with different themes and a different kind of sense of tone. And I suspect that's where you fall down on it too, Sean. And I think with you having brought in the Ultraman comparison, the Jesus-y stuff feels much more palpable, and Goku just isn't Jesus. That's not how he is ever written or characterized in Dragon Ball. Sometimes in the dub, sometimes in, I think, the original, like, DBZ movies, but not in actual Dragon Ball. And I don't think it fits.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, and as you're kind of like looking at those interviews, I mean, this is what it is. It doesn't feel like an earnest Dragon Ball story, and it more feels like people trying to deal with the fact that they're not going to make Dragon Ball anymore. You know, and that, which is not to say that that's illegitimate on its own right. Like, that's an interesting story, and those are interesting emotions to work through. And that's why, like, I mean, regardless of the fact that I have kind of mixed feelings about how this fits within Dragon Ball GT, how it fits within Dragon Ball as a story, this ending, like, I do think that this is one of the best parts of Dragon Ball GT, just purely because it's like, it's something that has heart and soul in it. Like, that's the one thing you can't accuse this ending of, is that it's soulless, which I think you can accuse almost all the rest of Dragon Ball GT of being that. This is the one piece of GT that does not feel like it was made by a boardroom of producers that were like just looking at their fucking bank accounts being like, we can't fucking stop making Dragon Ball. Are you crazy? Look at all the money that comes in. Look at this graph. Look at this graph, and look at this other graph we made if we stop making Dragon Ball. Or you lost your fucking mind that we're making more Dragon Ball. And that's what all of Dragon Ball GT feels like. I think it's one of the reasons why it feels like Dragon Ball GT is a show that's constantly fucking struggling to fill its own time, is because it has no idea of what it wants to be or what really story it wants to tell, because it exists not to tell a story, it exists to keep an IP ongoing. The last episode of GT, though, it legitimately feels like it's a group of artists struggling with, you know, most of them have been working on this series for 5, 10, maybe like 15 years or something at this point. Like, they've been working on, especially if you go back to some of them, will go all the way back, as you laid out last time, to like working on the Dr. Slump show. And it's like, well, now we're actually going to stop. And struggling and like coming up with that, I think that aspect of the ending is very emotionally affecting. At the same time, though, like, that's not what this TV show was. And it also just, it feels like it would be something that would be much more interesting if it was its own thing, right? If this is what the TV special was, and it was sort of kind of like what we were saying of like a little bit more like Godzilla Revenge / All Monsters Attack, where it was a blend of things that take place in the real world intersecting with Dragon Ball. I think there's like a different kind of artistic venue to explore those feelings that would feel a little bit more appropriate than the ending of the show, where you kind of shove this last episode in there. And it feels like it doesn't really exist in the world of Dragon Ball GT. So like on its own terms, I think it's a well-made episode and it's very interesting. At the same time, it doesn't feel like it is about actual Dragon Ball. Like, it's not about the story of Dragon Ball. It's not actually about the character of Goku. It's about the feelings of these people who are writing these stories and making this character that is also a character that they don't own. It is not a character that they actually made, right? It's like a thing that they have this, I like the Jesus thing is almost appropriate. They have this almost religious like relationship to, right? Like, they must worship at the altar of Goku because it's been their like life's work. It's been the thing that has paid their bills for years and years and years for many of them. So it's like he is this external force that they have to sort of almost pay tribute to in many ways, but it's also not a force that is born from them or that they have made. And so the sense of Goku becoming this weird divine figure, again, Pan, like, it's almost like sort of like, you know, it's very groan-worthy when Pan flies up and she sees Goku with the spirit bomb. This is the penultimate episode. But she says, oh, Kami-sama mitai. Like, he's like a god, which is a really bizarre sentence to say in a series where we fucking met God. God died, and we went to space and we found a new one. And he's the little green kid who lives on a big tower. Like, we have a god. And then we have a different god, and he's like a weird little blue fish dude, and he lives on a little tiny planet with a little car. And then we have a different god, and he's the little purple dude with a mohawk, and he lives on a bigger planet that's even further out there, right? So it's like, her being like, he's like a god is a really bizarre statement within the world of Dragon Ball. And I think that just sort of like sets the tone for this thing that like just exists in this whole different plane and this whole different dimension. And so I think that's where I get very mixed feelings on this ending. That on the one hand, on its own right, if you look at it as just like an artistic product and statement from these people reflecting on their own feelings of trying to put this character to rest, it is very moving in that sense. On the other hand, if I'm looking at it as a Dragon Ball fan trying to think of this as part of the ongoing world and story of Dragon Ball, for me, it feels incredibly like asynchronous and just like out of sorts with the actual story and themes and things and ideas that exist within the work of Dragon Ball itself.
I agree with that. And I think it is instructive here to look at how Toriyama Akira himself ended Dragon Ball when it came time. And he went with a specifically very non-sentimental ending, right? He went with the opposite of this. He went with a life goes on, it's 10 years later, another Budokai, and Goku finds someone else that he's going to go train and have fun with, and the story continues, we just don't get to see it. And look, that ending has long been controversial within Dragon Ball fan circles from people who want a little bit more closure, or don't like Goku's decision, or, you know, whatever it may be. But I think there's something very true and honest of, like, Toriyama will end individual arcs, but he's not someone who's going to bring this world conclusively to a close. It's just not the kind of writer he is, which means it's not the kind of story Dragon Ball is, right? Yeah. He is not that kind of sentimentalist where he's going to, like, wistfully wish the whole thing goodbye. And so the thing that my reaction to the ending of Dragon Ball, the manga, has always been that it feels very honest to me. It feels like, yes, Dragon Ball is something that is meant to continue on in your imagination. It is not something that is meant to have any kind of definitive conclusion. And if we lived in the much sunnier world where Toriyama lived another 30 years and continued doing stories in this and in his other worlds, I don't think you would have ever gotten him to write an ending to Dragon Ball anything like this, because that's not his relationship to Goku. That's our relationship to Goku.
Yes.
What this episode is doing, and I think there's something valuable in it, and I think there's a reason why it has resonated with people, is it is trying to transplant our feelings as fans and lovers of Goku, whose lives have been touched by him, onto the character, into the world, and to have a goodbye to Goku story where we can try to have some emotional catharsis over the end of Dragon Ball as a thing. And I agree that on that level it is well done. I think that scene with Kuririn at Kame's house is beautiful. I think it, like, when he asks to spar with Kuririn one more time and Kuririn knocks him away and then Goku disappears, there's something really lovely there. When Goku kind of melts into the dragon's back, there is something very lovely there. And when you see him in the future watching his grandson at the Tenkaichi Budokai, and then we have a final montage, is there something cathartic for someone saying goodbye to Dragon Ball in that? Yes, absolutely. Is it a natural ending to anything Dragon Ball GT was doing in the past 63 episodes? Not even a little bit, not even close. It's unrelated. Is it something that I feel like if you actually had to wrap up the story of Dragon Ball feels completely honest to who Goku was in the story? No, I don't. And I also I don't need Dragon Ball to have an ending. I think, especially now that Toriyama is gone, we're all going to have to come to terms with the fact that Dragon Ball is a perpetually sort of morphing, unfinished thing in that sense, outside of the original 42 volumes, obviously. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay that Dragon Ball is a set of stories, and that, like that Dragon Ball Daima is not a continuation of Super. It's just a different, thing that happens at this point in the story. I think it's okay that Dragon Ball can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and that the emotions that the GT ending is trying to work through, it's something the story I don't think can really give you, because it's something we as people and fans have to come to terms with, like our relationship to Goku and our sense of saying goodbye. And the fact is, we don't have to say goodbye to Goku. He's out there in a million different forms, and he belongs to all of us. And so I don't dislike the impetus behind this ending, or the idea of wanting to do kind of a fond farewell, especially because in 1997, I think there was a sense that this was actually the end. And obviously watching it in 2024, we know that just was patently untrue.
Yes.
Right? And we've had a lot more, and that the idea of having a farewell to Goku, we're done forever ending just feels like patently ridiculous. We don't need to have that. So yeah, I think that is where I fall down on it. It is probably one of the best, if not the best things in GT. I think if you love the ending to GT, I totally understand and wouldn't want to take anything away from that, because there is something powerfully evocative about it. And you can tell a lot of animation passion went into those moments. Again, it's some of the best animation of Shenlong in the whole series is him flying away at the end. Looks really good. Clearly a lot of love and care went into it, and that touches me too. But I do think, like, if we're talking about, like, what is the ideal ending to Dragon Ball, call me a purist, I'm still going to say it's kind of Toriyama's instinct to say Goku flies off and has more adventures. You know, it's the ending of, what's the ideal ending to Calvin and Hobbes? It is what Bill Watterson wrote, where it is Calvin and Hobbes go sledding and decide that they're going to have more adventures. That's the kind of series this is. It's not The Lord of the Rings, where I need to see the ring destroyed and Frodo grapple with his PTSD and ultimately go off into the West and definitively close things. It's not that story. It is more akin to Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes or something, where what I want is an ending that tells me all of this lives on, because in a very real sense, because of its childishness, it does in the hearts of everyone who saw it.
Yeah, and that also, like, the thing is that Dragon Ball, you know, it's part of that kind of more old school batch of kind of Shonen Jump action kind of series where it's not one truly, like, contiguous consecutive storyline where early on there is, like, a big picture goal, and at the end that goal is achieved, right? Something like Naruto, episode 1 of Naruto's like, I'm going to be Hokage. Guess what happens? Spoilers. What happens at the end of Naruto? He becomes a fucking Hokage. A lot happens between point A and point B there. There's a lot of intermediate steps. There's like 500 plus episodes of anime of intermediate steps. But there is a, like, clear, hey, this is, like, what I want to become. And so there's a clear point for the ending there. And eventually, 500 years from now, Luffy will become the Pirate King, you know? And that's, like, how is One Piece going to end? He's going to be the fucking Pirate King. What the fuck does that mean? I don't know. That's what it's going to be.
Well, he's got to find the One Piece. And like, we know, for instance, like, the One Piece is not something that is, like, ephemeral that we're never going to see. That has been promised to us as a thing that they're going to reach and they're getting closer and closer to, right? And that is different than, like, Goku does not go out in the first episode of Dragon Ball and go, I can't wait to be Super Saiyan 4 and become one with Shenlong, yes. Right? Like, that's not the kind of story this is. And as much as One Piece and Naruto and the more, like, 2000s crop of shonen anime are inspired by Dragon Ball, that is one big difference, is they have a different kind of narrative through line and a different kind of narrative rigor in that sense.
Yeah. And so Dragon Ball, like, it makes sense to have the adventure goes on because that's how it's always been. That's what any of the endings would have been, and then the adventure continues. Maybe it would have continued with Gohan and if Goku stays in the afterlife. But, like, but this, like, ties into the epilogue thing, the scene at the very end of GT, and then also the TV special, is that there's something that does, the one part of the ending that I don't like, is there's something that rubs me very wrong about the vision of the world in the future, which is we've got little Goku Jr. fighting little Vegeta Jr., and Pan is there in the audience, and Pan, you just can't help but get the sense that their vision for Pan is the only thing that's important about her is that she's Goku's granddaughter and that she is the person there to bear witness and pass on the life and, like, the testimony of Son Goku to followers in the future, right? This is part of, she's like his apostle, right? And there's just this weird sense of, like, she as a person is just consumed completely by her relationship to Goku because Goku so overwhelms everything in the show, and specifically everything in this ending and the TV special. It's all about Goku Jr. You're the great-grandson of Goku, and I can see in you who Goku was, that you've got the power of Goku, and if only you could be more like Goku. Right? And that special notably is not about how it's kind of fucked up to put those kinds of expectations on children and to say that because you're descended from this person, you must be like and live up to what that person was. Like, that's not the story of that TV special. The story of that TV special is you should learn to be more like Goku because Goku's great and amazing. And I think there is something about when you get away from the sentimentalism of saying goodbye to Goku and you move into this, like, now we're in Dragon Ball, but we're in this weird post-Goku world that just kind of looks like our world. There's something about that, just like it does in the TV special, that feels very wrong. And I think that's the place where I don't agree with what the ending does. Like, I wish it just ended with Goku melting into Shenron, and that was kind of it. And you don't, like, see this vision of this, like, post-Goku world, which feels, like, empty and hollow and doesn't have the magic of Dragon Ball in the way that, like, in Dragon Ball Z, if if it ended after the Cell thing and Goku stayed in the afterlife and Gohan's there, just because Goku's not there doesn't mean that, like, the magic of the world of Dragon Ball dies with him. It's carried on in all the other people we've met along the way because it's inherent to the world, not just to who Goku was as a character. And that's the place where I think, like, some of those intersections between this ending being both having to be an ending to this TV show, but also being this sort of, like, introspective farewell to Goku on the part of the artists and the fans, that sort of comes to this point that to me feels a little wrong. And I wish that it had a bigger vision of what it is for the people who have been inspired by Goku. If that's the perspective you're going, is this is about saying goodbye and saying, like, what is it that Goku leaves for all of us? I think there's a different way to do that and still maintain the worldview of Dragon Ball past Goku's life. And I wish that's something that the ending was better about doing.
I agree completely. And I think, you know, the other thing about the Life Goes On ending of Dragon Ball Z is that, you know, Toriyama introduces Pan there. He implicitly says, this is our next generation. You know, Z started with, or that part of the manga started with us meeting Gohan and enriching the cast that way. And now there's another generation after that. It's not singularly focused on Goku, because Goku does leave at the end of Z. He's just going off with Oob. He could come back anytime he wants, right? But it's like, there is this sense that there's this whole world around him that is fine even when he's not there. That's part of why Goku goes off with Oob, is because he's not 100%, he's maybe emotionally needed by the people in his life, and he maybe neglects that sometimes, but he knows that, like, literally everyone's fine, and there is a bigger world there. And because the supporting cast is so thinly used in GT, I mean, Goku leaves a world that's, like, literally in tatters, everything's blown up, and he's going off. Gohan and Goten were completely useless for this entire series and never did anything. Pan was never allowed to fight or go Super Saiyan. And then eventually she's just the person who just keeps telling Goku stories later on and lives to old age. There is something very sad and small about it where, you know, all of the pivot points in Toriyama's story tend to come from expansions of the world, in the sense that, like, what Goku's legacy is Gohan. And it is through that, it is then Pan, and it is the kindness Gohan shows to others. It is bringing Videl into the fold. It is Piccolo becoming a good guy and being brought into the fold. Like, those are all Goku's legacy. The legacy is that you could do a movie like Dragon Ball Super Superhero where Goku isn't the main character and is only in one scene, you know?
Yeah.
And GT does not have that vision of the world. And I think Dragon Ball needs to be expansive in its vision. And this is it's a very insular ending. And that insularity can be emotionally honest in some ways, but I don't think it's right for the story.
Yeah, I agree. It does also just raise lots of questions, like, what the who did Pan marry? What the fuck happened to her kid and or kids who are Goku Jr.'s parents? What about Bra, right? Who should have been the same age basically as Pan, that just seemingly is she, I don't know. They just tell us that Pan is the only one who's still around from the old days. So I don't know what happened to Bra. We have, like, this, like, other Bulma that sits down because we have a little tiny kid Vegeta, which is weird. I like Horikata Ryo's performance of little kid Vegeta, because it's the only time, you know, everybody else he knows has had to play little kids. And it's like he never, I guess he does actually, a couple times you see little Prince Vegeta with this dumb cape. But other than that, he doesn't usually get to play little kid Vegeta. So, like, that is kind of fun. But at the same time, the notion of, like, and that's what the future is generations of Goku and Vegeta fighting for all eternity while the women sit on the sidelines and comment about it. And it's like, is that what it's all about? Like, is that like really, especially for GT, where Vegeta didn't feature until, other than when he was a bad guy, and then only at the very, very end. Like, I don't know why they're on the whole Goku and Vegeta fighting for eternity is what the future is. That's very much not GT's storyline. But as you say, that it's very sort of, like, small and reductionist, and it sort of just makes the world feel tiny. Whereas, I've said it before, I'll say it again, like, Dragon Ball is a series that is forward-looking, not weird-looking. Like, it is not about going backwards and redoing things. Like, Goku only turns into a giant ape 2 times in the entire series. He does it in the first arc, he does it in the second arc, and he never does it again. Because Toriyama is not about going backwards and trying to pluck out those ideas. Like, he does it briefly when the Saiyans come in. He's like, oh, we can do a little bit of giant ape stuff. And they do it. He does it in the Saiyan arc. and then it never comes up again. Because it's just not what that series is about. It's about moving forward and, as I say, being expansionist. It's about building things and going beyond that and not shrinking things and making them smaller. And that's the one place where the GT ending, like, I think it struggles at trying to sort of resolve whatever this weird sort of like two-sided thing it's trying to be, which is both a finale to a TV show and this other kind of artistic statement about their own feelings about Goku.
Yeah, and what I wanted to end with here today, Sean, is an excerpt from an interview that Masako Nozawa gave in the Dragon Ball GT Perfect File number 2 from October 27th, 1997, where she reflected on what she thought at the time were her final episodes playing Son Goku. And honestly, this provides me more of that emotional catharsis than the actual episode does, and I thought it would be a nice way to end our discussion of this era of Dragon Ball. So I'm going to read her words, and maybe, Sean, you can come in and give me the green interviewer questions when those come up.
Okay.
So this is, again, Nozawa talking about Goku and at what the time she thought was the end of her time playing him. Within myself, I don't have the feeling that it's ended. I feel incredibly strongly that Goku is alive within me, that we go through life together, that we walk together. That's why, rather than having ended, it feels like he's merely become unable to meet with me or everyone through the TV. But 12 years. It was like the blink of an eye. That's about the time it takes for a baby to grow into a junior high schooler, so I'm surprised. All my fellow cast members were saying things like, we went through an entire cycle of the Chinese zodiac.
What sort of feeling did you have the night before recording the final episode? Was it lonesome or something like that then?
I tried to deny it a number of times, but lonesomeness or the feeling that I won't be able to see the other cast members I've met with every week really came out. However, if that sort of lonesome feeling were to make an appearance in the recording, it would move away from the world of Dragon Ball. So I told myself, the day when we can meet again will definitely come, but that lonesome feeling really did come out, and I had to deny it again.
Were there any scenes in the final episode that left an impression?
The scene where, after Goku finishes fighting, he rides on Shenlong and says, Shenlong's back sure is warm. That's because riding on Shenlong means that Goku's going to leave this world and go to the world of the gods. I was glad that they didn't write it plainly that he died, though. I feel that Goku probably went to Shenlong's place and is training again.
What sort of presence does Dragon Ball itself have within you as a work, Nozawa-san?
Within my history with anime, in terms of things such as the length of time I've done a role, it's a work that set all kinds of new records, so it's quite a large presence. That, and having been able to play Goku, Gohan, and Goten through to completion without damaging my health, or even once letting another person substitute in my role over 12 years, I consider a point of pride. Fuck, goddamn, yes you do, Nozawa-san, that's me. That's because for an actor, health is a must. Also, it's a work that made me realize the power of anime is extraordinary.
What do you mean?
At the request of the family of a child who went into a coma due to an accident, I once recorded my voice onto a cassette tape. And mysteriously enough, when they played Goku's voice on that tape for him, while he wasn't conscious, apparently he would respond. Goku is a mere drawing, yet he is alive and he exists at children's sides. That's how I was made aware all the more through Dragon Ball that the power of animation is even greater than everyone thinks. I believe that anime isn't a simple fabrication. It's something that you have to give life to, and if you can't do that, then you've failed. As a mother of one, I think that it's nice for there to be a work that you can watch with your children, but lately that sort of work has become rarer, and I think that's too bad. I believe that animation is basically something for children.
Now then, finally, a message for all the fans.
I know it's a cliche, but thank you for your support over 12 years. Goku is alive within everyone, and I believe we will definitely be able to meet him somewhere from here on out. Someday we'll be able to meet. I want you to wait for that someday. Goku is definitely by your side, so I want you to talk to Goku too. I believe that Goku is now training at God's place, so someday for sure he'll become an even more wonderful Goku and come back before us. I'm sure of it. I love this woman. I think she should be put on Mount Rushmore, even though it's for American presidents. Take off one of them, put Nozawa-san on there. She is the best. And I also think it is striking how I think she understands Dragon Ball so much better than GT does just in that interview, because of her instinct is, it's not over. He's out there. He's training. We're moving on. She is like so rejecting of the idea that this thing is done. She's so focused on the idea of how it lives on in everybody's heart. I love her. She's just the best.
I do like that she contributes to the Jesus-like imagery, though. She basically says the equivalent of, like, he was walking with me. It's the, like, there was the two set of footprints, and then I looked back, and there was only one set of footprints, and I said to Goku, why is there? He said, because I was riding on the Kinto. What do you think?
All right, so Sean, after GT's conclusion in November 1997, Dragon Ball was off TV for another 12 years until the premiere of Dragon Ball Kai in April 2009. The only original animation in this intervening period is the Jump Super Anime Tour special Yo! Son Goku and Friends Return in September 2008. However, this intervening period where Dragon Ball had gone dark in Japan is also the period where we must remember that it became very popular in the United States and many other territories. Funimation's original dub of DBZ, the Rock the Dragon dub, debuted in September 1996 and grew in popularity from there. The early 2000s also saw a dramatic rise in Dragon Ball video games with the Budokai series for consoles and later the Budokai Tenkaichi series and the American-made games like the handheld Legacy of Goku. And eventually in 2013, Toriyama himself returned to the franchise with Battle of Gods, kicking off what we now think of as the revival era with 4 original movies, Dragon Ball Super and now Dragon Ball Daima. Toriyama, of course, passed away in 2024, far too young, but the journey goes on for all of us, and Goku walks behind us or rides on Kintoan, as you so artfully said, Sean.
And Jonathan, we are done with Dragon Ball GT. We do not have to watch any more Dragon Ball GT. We don't even have to talk about any more Dragon Ball GT. We can move on. The journey goes on for us because the journey is no longer on Dragon Ball GT. And for that, I am eternally grateful to our Lord and Savior, Son Goku.
Me too. So, Sean, we are continuing our grand tour. No more Dragon Ball this season, but instead we are running back into the loving arms of the god of manga himself, the man who gave birth to all of this, arguably, Tezuka Osamu, because we are doing a couple episodes on some of his works beginning next week with Dororo, and we are talking about Dororo, the 1969 TV series in black and white, which you can get on DVD from Discotek Media. We'll be doing the 2019 remake the week after that. And then we're going to be doing the anime Rama trilogy that Tezuka's Mushi Productions worked on or created. So we have a whole little Tezuka series coming up next. And I think after losing a lot of faith in the heart of anime with Dragon Ball GT, this might be exactly what we need, Sean, to get our groove back.
Exactly. I mean, it's like what they say with, martial arts. It's, if you've trained in the wrong way and you've learned a lot of really bad habits, what do you got to do? You got to go back to the fundamentals, baby.
Manga